We've done it again. Getting started a little early today because, I'm just sitting here, kind of waiting for the stream, so I thought, what the heck. Let's get going. Good evening to you, Islam. Haven't seen you around in a while, Islam. Good to see you. Nanya, good to see you. Bonjour. How you guys doing today? Just settling into the day, settling into the stream. We started a little early. Can't even explain how I feel today, you know? Having one of these days where it's like I can't believe life is like this, right? I can't believe life is like this. Just like a series of overt, total catastrophes with almost complete disinterest at resolving them. Just like everybody kind of shrugging around, being, "Oh well, what are you gonna do?" Like, well, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? We should surround the halls of power, and we should tell these fucking billionaires to get fucked. I don't know why that's even considered a controversial position. Let's see if I can do this one from memory. In my eyes, indisposed, in disguises no one knows, hides the face, lies the snake, the sun in my disgrace. Boiling heat, neath the black, the sky looks dead. Call my name through the cream and I'll hear you scream again. Black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black hole sun, won't you come, won't you come? I forget the next verse. In my shoes, a walking sleep. In my youth, I pray to keep heaven sent hell away. No one sings like you anymore. Black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black hole sun, Still working on that one. Still working on that one. Yeah, capitalist brainwashing is strong and subtle. We're going to go through some of the subtleties about the capitalist death cult and how they're operating and how they talk about these things, right? Today's video was about how they're obfuscating the BC flooding. And I actually have a really great article that's going to get into that obfuscation and get into why or how this brainwashing works and how they're controlling the dissent of the populace in order to try and con us into believing that they are actually attempting to deal with this issue when they couldn't give a crap about this issue at all. Like they don't care about climate change even a little. Like even a little. Everything you hear about climate change is strictly done to try to convince the populace to keep allowing the rape of the planet to continue. That's what it's for, because that's how you make money, right? And the worship of money is paramount, and which again they explicitly argue for. They will tell you, but Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, like everybody has already stated, yeah, climate change, all that, breathable air, workable land, all that, but money, right? The economy, right? Money. So literally they're putting it in front of you and they're saying straight out, like, you can have clean, breathable air or money, but you can't have both. And they're choosing money. They're choosing money, right? I mean, what do you expect from a Nazi collaborator like Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, right? Like, we're through the looking glass here. Like, we've got to dump these guys. Like, we've got to. We don't have an option. Like, the idea that we're going to continue forward and these people are going to come to their senses and be like, oh, we've actually got to do something. No, they don't care. Like, they don't even care about their own children. Like, they really don't. And now we've literally got, like, a pilot pointing at Justin Trudeau and saying, oh, yeah, he was on these flights to Jeffrey Epstein's, like, pedophile island, right? Like, I don't know what we need. Like, he comes out in front of us in blackface. He comes out in front of us, like, he's given money to Nazi groups in Ukraine. Like, what do we need? Like, what do we really need? I didn't see this, the new video BC NDP put about their logging and complete lies. Yeah, I mean, like, the BC NDP are, like, they're finished. Like, I don't know who supports these guys anymore outside of just, like, the most corrupt, inept people. At this stage in the game, it's you got to be voting Green if you live in BC. Like, we all need to bail on these guys. Like, it needs to be a full-scale abandonment. We need to abandon them back, right? Like, I've been saying it all along. Like, we need to abandon these guys back because they've abandoned us. That if climate change was an offending army, we would already be spitting at their betrayals. We would already be cursing their names at their overt and obvious betrayal. Like, the Trudeau Liberals are literally subsidizing this destructive force that's coming to destroy us. They literally are giving money to do that. With this, wink and a nod at, like, oh, but the economy, like, get fucked. We've got to nationalize the fossil fuel industry. We should arrest these fossil fuel executives. Like, we should. To me, that seems like non-controversial. Completely non-controversial. Like, we've got to arrest these guys. And like, for the overt, obvious crimes. But we live in a lawless society. There's no rules. Hey, Tinker, how you doing, bud? Communists and socialists need to take over NDP everywhere. Just like Corbyn took over Labour in UK. Well, he tried to. Like, it didn't really work, but... All right, before we move on, today's number, right? Let's have a little fun. Let's try to get a little magic this time. Everybody's got to pick a number between 1 and 10. If you're in... You can't win it. I'm going with a 2. I'm feeling like a 2 today.
Here we go for today's number. It's December 7, 2021.
As y'all in with a 6.
10 balls.
10 balls.
Each ball has a number.
Got a 7 from Mox. Mox, how you doing, bud?
1 through 10.
Everybody's picking a 2. You're jumping on the 2 trains. I got
numbers.
It. Hey, Major, how you doing, bud? Swirl the numbers. Here we go.
Pick a number.
Got a pretty good array. I think we got like a 50% chance, maybe a 60% chance.
Today's number is...
And 7. Mocked. the divine number, the great and powerful Macht, Deutschland vom Fraschimus frei, winning, getting the David Lynchian energy, feeling it, spread throughout your soul and your body. That's right. Today is the day, right? Today is the day. Go do that thing, Mach, that you've been putting off. You have the Lynchian energy. The fairies are with you. So, this is the article that I think is going to be very useful to describe how the death cult is acknowledging that this is a climate change disaster while simultaneously diverging and disconnecting it from the wider conversation, right? Essentially admitting that yes, it's a disaster. Like how you can't deny that, right? You can't deny that. Here's the images. Like you've got an entire province of people who are directly impacted by this, who are living with it, who understand what's going on, and also understand that it's climate change related, right? So you can't bullshit them. You can't just say it's not real. You can't deny that the event isn't happening, nor can you deny the cause of the event, right? But what you can do is frame the conversation within the confines of the individual event, right? So even while they are connecting these climate change, this disaster to the larger idea of climate change, they will never report on the subsidies, on the larger issues. That they've written this entire article, and I'm not going to read it out loud, but they've written this entire article, and what this article deals with and how the death cult will deal with this is by asking the immediate questions within the confines of the event itself. What's to be done with that land? What's to be done? What repairs can be done? What building can be done? How do we prevent an event like this in this area again? Right? They absolutely will not report on this issue as the large-scale meta issue that it actually is. They don't want the public to understand that both the conservatives and the liberals, i.e. the capitalist death cult, are funding this catastrophe. First of all, they certainly don't want the populace to recognize that we are funding this catastrophe, right? They don't want us to recognize that, like, this article should absolutely be diving into the fact that the fossil fuel industry is well aware that this was going to happen, that they knew this was going to happen. They understood that this was going to happen as long ago as the 1980s. As long as I've been alive, they have been aware of these catastrophes that they themselves are responsible for creating, right? They know they're creating this stuff. And it is the role of the media then is to report on it in the small scale, immediate sense, talking to people like this, talking to people, asking them, what are you going to do next? How are you going to repair this? But absolutely under no circumstances are they going to even make the most rudimentary attempts to connect rudimentary connections. Justin Trudeau's liberals, Aaron O'Toole's conservatives, as well as Harper's conservatives, funded this catastrophe. They will never say that, which is fundamentally the truth. And they are continuing to fund this catastrophe. That they are subsidizing fossil fuel industries that we know are aware of what climate change could do as far back as the 80s. And our media is dead silent about it. Not interested in reporting the facts, not interested in reporting, but give the appearance of being interested in reporting, give the appearance of attempting to report on climate change issues by Oh, are we going to rebuild? And look how much they wrote about. Look how much writing they've done, right? Look how big and long this article is. Oh, we've got pictures. We've got a guy standing here talking about it, right? It's to give the appearance of action. That's what it is. It's to give the appearance of action and create a show, create a hoopla so that they can always point to it and be like, well, what? We're doing the reporting. But like, to me, this is the equivalent of walking into a building that's been blown up by an army, right? And saying like, oh man, what a catastrophe that this building has been blown up and all of this, oh my goodness. And then never asking the basic questions about who is this army? Why are they invading us? Who's funding the army? And if you found out that your government was the people who were funding the army, you'd have things to say to your government. But for some reason, because it's, well, I shouldn't say for some reason, because it's the earth and because it's the rules of the universe itself, we have no respect for the earth or the universe or the rules that it exists on. Like, we have no respect whatsoever. We simply don't care as a people. And so because it's these rules that exist outside of our control and that exist outside even of our comprehension for why they exist, we simply just don't care about them, right? That if it was a group of people doing this, our entire society would be restructuring itself to fight back against that group of people. But because it's the earth itself, it can get fucked. Oh well, what are you gonna do, right? Like, we're a very arrogant people, and this climate change issue is really revealing it. Because anybody with sense in their head, the first question that they would be asking would be, how do we stop this? Not, are we going to rebuild from it? How are we going to rebuild from this? All that. Like, that's all just capitalist nonsense. The first question that should be asked by anyone with reason in their brain at all, how do we stop this? Well, step one, stop funding it. Step one, stop funding it. Right? Seems pretty straightforward. But our media is never going to do that. Never going to do that. That, like, it's not going to be until we have actually surrounded the halls of power, threatening communist revolution, that they might actually begin taking seriously things they should have taken seriously in the 1980s. Like, when we are threatening to arrest them for their culpability in this. Because they are completely culpable. Like, the culpability of the media, the culpability of the political class in maintaining these disasters and ensuring that the destruction of that we see throughout British Columbia does occur. Like, we need to very seriously be talking about tribunals, very seriously be talking about arresting these people and putting them on trial in a Hague-style trial system. Like, these people are as bad as the Nazis. I mean, the Nazis didn't even weren't attempting to destroy the entire species, right? Not the way these guys are. And we know that's what's going to happen. So we've got to, if we've got, and I say this all the time to each and every one of you, right? First of all, come to my protest if you're in Toronto. December 15th, 2 p.m., Yonge and Dundas Square, right? We've got to protest the abandonment of the disabled, the abandonment of the poor, which is steadily turning into the abandonment of the entire population. Like, we're not, and we're not even close. Like, we're not even close to getting to a point where there's any rational thinking going on at any levels of power. And like we really are to a point now where our best efforts might be just attempting to shift the culture, right? Because the culture itself, 2 p.m., Tinker. 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, December 15th, Yonge and Dundas Square. And like we, like for 10 years, right? For 10 years, the media was putting up fossil fuel hacks, people who were literally paid off by the fossil fuel industry, and putting them beside people who had literally studied the issue, PhD scholars, and pretending like those two were the same, and pretending like they were objective. And the only reason it stopped, like literally the only reason it stopped, was because independent journalists and independent people such as myself took to YouTube and took to these places and started pointing this out and started saying like, oh, hey, this is fraudulent. Like, there's a reason why we don't believe our media anymore. And one of the major ones is that they were reporting it as a both sides issue, right? They were reporting it as a both sides issue. And for that, they should do, like, these people should do jail time, significant jail time. Like, taking an issue like climate change and pretending as though the PhD scholar is the same as the guy literally paid by the fossil fuel industry, pretending like those two are the same, is treasonous. It's literally taking like the general of your military and putting the general of the opposing enemy's military side by side and pretending like those two are equivalent, while the opposing military comes and destroys you, right? Like, this is the treasonous behavior that we're talking about in this fake society that we exist in. And I say fake society because more and more I'm just like, you don't need to obey any of these laws. Like, they don't care about you. They don't care about any of this stuff, right? There's no reason to play by their rules because they're literally abandoning you. Like, did you take down your fake news about Trudeau Epstein? Nope. CNN reported on it, just JC. So if it's good enough for CNN, it's good enough for me, bud. Maybe it's time to update your facts. Like, if CNN pulled a retraction, I'll pull a retraction. But CNN reported on it, I report on it. As far as I'm concerned, there's a pilot fingering Trudeau on those flights reported by CNN. If you don't like it, too bad. If you can show me a retraction, I'll retract. Fucking liberals. Hey Dave, how you doing, bud? The control of knowledge and information are the cornerstones of the pyramid of power. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. CNN didn't report on that. I think you saw a photoshopped pic. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. Here. I mean, we've got... So you think this is a Photoshop pic? Scotty Happs. I'm happy to be challenged by this, bud. Like, I am happy to be challenged by this. And I will be challenged by it. But like... So this is a Photoshop? It's a good Photoshop. But I see where you're coming from. Like, all you'd have to do is, like, cut this out, right? Slap in Justin Trudeau's face. Yeah, do that. Or just tell me what to type in, bud. I will happily retract this statement. Like, no lie. I have as much information as you guys have. And I don't want to be reporting lies. I straight up don't want to be reporting lies. Like, it's bad enough that he's a Nazi collaborator. Like, that's definitely the truth. So, like, you're not going to be able to put a link in Just JC. You're not going to be able to put a link in the chat. Just tell me what to search. I can search stuff. Or if you do put a link in the chat, you got to put spaces. No, exactly. I mean, he's a Nazi collaborator, for God's sakes. And again, like, I want to report on the truth, and I'm not going to report on what is... You're right. You are right about that, Dave. It is a little bit darker. right? Yeah, and his Nazi collaboration is certainly not fake. We've got lots and lots of evidence showing that that's the case. And you know, now let's search the title from that pic. It will come up. That's good. That's good. Okay, let's go. Epstein's former pilot names high-profile passenger. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Epstein's former pilot. Let's get it right. Names high-profile passengers. Names high-profile passengers. So let's start with the image. Yeah, that looks about right. Yeah, I could see it here and here, right? Here's the original, and here's the new. Interesting, because George Mitchell gets replaced with Justin Trudeau. And honestly, let's take a look at the New York Times article. We'll just do a quick search. Yeah, no Trudeau. Okay, you know what? I retract. That's good enough for me. Thanks for keeping me honest, Just JC. Thanks for keeping me honest. You know, and as this is unfolding, I'm thinking to myself, you know, I did just see this picture, and I reacted from my gut. I was in that Nazi collaboration place, which is like completely the truth, the Nazi collaboration bullshit, and just I can tell that it's from a place of anger, right? I'm not very happy about Trudeau, obviously, and so I completely capitulate. Just JC coming in here and with the simplest of pushback, absolutely, I completely capitulate. Nope, Justin Trudeau has not been fingered by a pilot. That this is a Photoshop. This is a Photoshop. Yeah. We got Nunya now saying checking the list, Trudeau not on the list. Yeah. And then, but this was like a breaking news thing. But now, and even what's very convincing is this. Oh, we had it. Where'd that go? There it is. Is this right here, right? Like, and this has like a grainy sort of a picture taken from a television screen sort of look. Whereas this has more of an official look. And I mean, they're identical. The pictures are completely identical. It's just that Trudeau has been photoshopped into it. Yeah. And it's a Photoshop job. Yeah. Complete retraction. Tomorrow's video, I will retract. Tomorrow's video will be a retraction, a full-scale retraction. Because I've always said that that's what I'm going to do. That unless it's like a minor shift, but if I report on something and I'm wrong, like I'm just wrong, I've always said that I'm going to do a full-scale retraction, a full video about that retraction, why it's important to do a retraction, why it's important to admit that I was deceived. This I've been deceived. I saw this and thinking back on it, I really should have done my homework and I should have done a deeper dive. I should have been more suspicious than I was, and that's the apology. So, once again, thank you, Just JC. Keep us honest. Keep us honest. Above all else, keep us honest. And so tomorrow's video will be about that. It's a bit embarrassing. It's a bit embarrassing, honestly. Yeah. Thank you, Just JC. I appreciate it, dude. I do. I really do. Like it's. If we don't have the truth, we have nothing. If we don't have the truth, we have nothing. And, thanks, Kiri. Sorry, guys. I just am like... This whole thing feels so fragile. My shirt doesn't say John. It says it's a SpongeBob shirt, right? Is mayonnaise an instrument? Yeah, but my feeling, as y'all, my feeling is like if I retract, if I stay to the truth, if I stick to my guns, like if other people want to talk about me, they're going to talk about me, and honestly, I consider that a sign of success. Right? I consider that. Well, but even the news makes mistakes, right? Like even the news does this, and the news retracts, right? Thank you all for your support in this. Thank you for all of that, because boy howdy, this whole thing is I keep talking about this as if we are in a mass hysteria. And we are in a mass hysteria. No reason to double down on what's observably false. No reason for that. That's the truth. Right? And that's the life lesson for everyone, right? If it's observably false, if you're wrong, best thing to do is admit that you are wrong and move on. It's one of the hardest things for people to do, it seems. But you gotta do it. You gotta do it. Thanks, Tinker. Thanks, bud. Thank you all. Oh my God. I'm so happy that you guys are here to support. I'm so happy that you guys are here to you are the wind beneath my wings. Can I say it that way? Okay, let's move on from this. Point landed. There's just so fucking much going on. And what's sad to me is that it's believable. Like, I think that's the reason I got sucked into it. Right? Like, a professional reaction would have been some small print on the screen at the end of my show. Yeah, that's right, Nova Scotia. I gotta think about that, right? Gotta get more professional up in here. Thanks, Just JC. I appreciate that, dude. Especially as the person who brought the who brought the correction in. I appreciate that a lot. But the disappointment now is like that it, like, as I was brought into that, as I was suckered into that, I believed it, I believed it. It was believable. Like, and honestly, like, I do think that even a month ago, if that had have happened, I would have been more skeptical from the inset. But we've been diving down this Nazi collaboration hole here for a while now, and the Nazi collaboration stuff is just like unbelievable, and that's affirmed. Like, that's coming from the Ottawa Citizen, that's coming from like the Globe and Mail, the military itself, the Canadian military itself has confirmed it. So, like, but it's like it's not okay that we live in a society where this kind of thing happens, and it's so fucking believable. Like, it's so fucking believable. Like, we know that, like, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton and Gates and all of these guys were on those flights. So why not Trudeau? Why not Trudeau? And it's just like, what a bleak time. What a bleak time. And, like, none of these guys are actually going to face the music on any of this. Like, Donald Trump's not going to get arrested for this. Like, it doesn't matter what happens in that court. Right? Doesn't matter what comes out. Doesn't matter who confesses or what testimony happens or what evidence comes down. Like, no one's going to charge him with anything. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, and even if he does get charged, someone will pardon him. Right? That's the way the system works. They protect their own. Yeah, he just has his hands in the oil fields and not kids. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. So, Canada's big banks pay out $19 billion in record bonuses. Big Six raising fees despite profits hitting all-time high of $57 billion in 2021. Christmas is coming early for Canada's bankers. The 6 largest banks hit record-breaking profits in 2021 and will pay out massive bonuses at year's end. Newly released fourth quarter earnings reports shows. On the strength of a combined $57.4 billion in profits, the Big Six are paying out $18.8 billion in bonuses before the holidays. The year's bonuses follow on the $15.2 billion paid out by the banks in 2018, $15.6 billion in 2019, and $16.2 billion in 2020, making this the best year in history for high-level bankers in Canada. Let's just do some quick number crunching, right? 15, 15, 16. So it's like $45 billion in the last 3 years alone. 4 years alone. You've got like literally $50 billion. What's the price of that basic income again? What's the price tag on that again? Canadian banks are among the most profitable companies in the world, and Canada has become an increasingly favorable place for banks to operate. Yeah, he does care about kids. Taking Indigenous kids to court, that is. Nice. That's a nice one. I like that one. Despite their runaway profits, banks offered only temporary and limited support to customers during the pandemic. Not only have most of those supports expired, but banks are raising fees again. As pandemic-related federal income supports like the Canada Recovery Benefit are phased out, nearly half of Canadians are $200 or less away from covering their financial expenses each month. According to a survey in October, more than a quarter of Canadians are already insolvent, having no money left by end of the month to cover their bills. This quarter solidified the big banks' major rebound this year. Scotiabank netted $9.95 billion. The Bank of Montreal, $7.7 billion. The Royal Bank of Canada, $16.1 billion. Toronto Dominion Bank, $14.2 billion. National Bank of Canada, $3.1 billion. And the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, $6.4 billion. Here's a great chart. Canadian bank profits and bonuses, right? Here's the bonus, here's the profits. 2020 profits is in the gray. The teal there. So, up and up and up. The rest of us are getting thrown out into the streets, but up and up and up. And then there's the bonuses. Up and up and up. Up and up and up. Yeah, it's good to just hang on to other people's money and not do actual work, right? Business as usual for Canada's banks. While bank earnings have almost always been steady, they've ballooned over the last decade thanks to wealth management divisions and mortgage provisioning amidst a red-hot housing crisis. Merger and acquisitions, credit lending, and providing daily banking services to regular customers always earns the banks hefty profits too. Wouldn't it be great? Like, these guys are like the Ferengi, eh? Like mergers and acquisitions, like straight up. Like you walk into these banks and it might as well just be like Quark sitting there. They've also long enjoyed optimal business conditions. A Toronto Star study found that banks in Canada from 2011 to 16 paid the lowest tax rate, 16% of all the G7 countries. Their penchant for outright tax avoidance helps as well, parking billions in offshore tax havens in Barbados, Antigua, Ireland, and beyond. In times of crisis, they benefit from federal liquidity supports or bailouts, often with few requirements. As the major banks receive $115 billion following the 2008 and 9 financial crisis, their CEOs ranked among the 100th wealthiest in Canada. This week's earnings reports from the Big Six are only the latest development in the financial sector's major rebound after brief pandemic dips. In addition to a sooner than expected economic recovery, federal income supports help avert insolvencies, with about a third of all CERB payments going to people's debt repayment. This infusion of public money, aided by a rebounding economy, meant the banks needed to access levels of the money they've set aside to service bad loans in times of crisis, known as loan loss reserves, boosting their bottom line. By February 2021, the Big Six were more profitable than they were before the pandemic. Banks, in fact, have a new problem. They have more money than they know what to do with. Because the Big Six hold so much excess capital, shareholders expect the banks to maximize their investment, which can happen through increasing dividends or investments in their businesses. Should we expect 2021's huge profits to translate into more affordable services? Not likely. During the early months of the pandemic, the financial sector stepped in with a number of rare supports. Cuts to interest rates for 2 to 6 months, for example, as well as a few months of mortgage payment deferrals. But a year and a half later, those interventions have mostly disappeared. Last spring, just over a year after the COVID-19 pandemic hit Canada, the banks came under fire for raising fees on basic banking services. On TD's bank's preferred checking accounts, for example, the bank raised its required minimum balance to waive fees from $2,000 to $5,000, as CBC reported. Each transaction for customers who don't have the minimum balance on their accounts will go up, too, to nearly $2. BMO, RBC, and CIBC brought similar fee charges as well. High fees are nothing new to Canadian banking. Compared to other countries, Canadians are charged steeply by banks to hold their money, some of the highest fees in the world. This includes fees for accounts and ATM withdrawals, as well as overdraft and non-sufficient fund charges, all of which burden those with the least amount of money. Fees serve as an important, albeit comparatively small, source of profit during the period of continued low interest rates. Yet, even after years of rock-bottom interest rates set by Canada's central bank, meaning lending is cheaper than ever, most banks have maintained credit card rates at around 19.9%. The Canadian Labour Congress and Acorn Canada have both led campaigns taking aim at how severe the deck is stacked against consumers. Acorn points out that about 3% of Canadians, almost 1 million, are unbanked and exclusively entirely from basic financial services like checking accounts and credit. As the banks stave off demands to drop interest rates on credit cards, raise them on savings accounts, or slash fees, they've also laid off employees, closed branches, and reduced services. So where has surplus from all these savings gone? Certainly, some is being invested in new technologies and other core business ventures. Giant amounts have also been allocated year over year to bonuses. If past years are any indication, executives will receive enormous compensation this year. Typically, they earn millions in variable performance pay, which can include short-term incentives like cash bonuses or long-term incentives like stock options, on top of their annual salaries, existing portfolios, pensions, and more. In 2020, TD Bank's CEO, Bharat Masrani, earned $8.9 million, consisting of a cash bonus, stock options, and deferred performance shared units, in addition to his $1.45 million salary. David McKay, president and CEO of RBC, earned $10.8 million on top of his $1.5 million salary. And on it goes. And on it goes. Like, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? When does a person have enough money? When does a company have enough money? When is enough enough? And when should a society say that's enough? Because right now, this manic hysteria of money worship is having incredibly distortionary situations where they're raising fees on the poorest so that they can give the richest extra money. Yeah, nationalize. Yeah. Their tellers don't see that profit. Yeah. Yet they all increased their fees during COVID. If the realty market in North America is valid, explain why van life and tiny house are the biggest growing communities. On the 6th December 1939, 2 months after the invasion of Poland, and not long after the skirmishes in the Saarland and Alsace-Lorraine, Hitler sent Joachim von Ribbentrop to strike an offer of peace with Edward Daladier, Prime Minister, and George Bonnet, Foreign Minister, who initially agreed, but Parliament wouldn't let them. Like, there does come a point where you do have to start to ask, what's wrong with these people? Like, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us as a people? We're just going along with it. And in the midst of this, right, Canadian pilots rally to supply towns isolated by flooding. It was cold and near sundown. Basically, the gist of this article is that the Canadian government is being so lax on actually helping people, right? While he acknowledged authorities have provided some support, people in the stranded communities are telling him the provincial and federal governments seem content to leave it to volunteers and donations to meet people's ongoing needs. This seems to fit the narrative of abandonment, doesn't it? We've seen governments act this way. We've seen governments act in order to abandon their populace. We all remember New Orleans, the flooding that occurred there, right? And how those people were abandoned. Are we at all surprised to hear stories like this coming out of our own government that operates on the same principles? You know, I do got to pause and I got to circle back around and I do got to say, boy, am I ever glad you guys are all here. I really am. I really am glad that you guys are all here. What an annoying time. What a frustrating time. What a frustrating time. And the reason why it's so goddamn frustrating is that we know it can be better than this. Like, we know. Like, it can be better than this. Right? Like, does anyone here deny that it can't... Does anyone here think it can't be better than what we currently have? Right? Like, we can have so much more than what we have. Right? And not in terms of stuff. Right? Not in terms of just like, oh, I can have a Eat, Pray, Love poster, right? Like, not in terms of just the junk and the garbage that we collect and put around us. You know, in this sort of mad attempt to convince ourselves that just because we're empty, right? Well, if we're so empty, then we'll fill our lives with junk. And that will somehow fill our lives with something meaningful or something constructive. But in terms of like our time, in terms of our ability to actually pause and contemplate and think and communicate and talk and organize and build and have community, we could do so much better than this. So much better than this. And like, we know it. We intrinsically are aware of it. And that's what makes it so frustrating. That like this community that is being built around me reporting the news, that, and I don't like to say that this community that I am building, because I don't feel as though I am. I feel as though like there's a real like, if you build it, they will come sort of feel about what's going on. And I just look at what's going on in the world, And I'm just like, do we really believe that this is it? Yeah, the capitalists want to divide us. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And like, especially in these days of isolation, right? Like we're very isolated right now. Isolated in serious ways. And it just seems as though we're experiencing like a kind of constipation almost. That like it can't stay this way. And it won't stay this way. Right? That I think that's the most annoying part about it, is that we've planted our feet and we've dug them in on this idea that, oh, we'll go back to normal, as if there was such a thing as going back to normal, as normal was careening us down a path of total catastrophe, which is unfolding in front of us almost on a daily basis now, in this mass hysteria that we seem unable to free ourselves from. And it's so blisteringly annoying because so much of it is just stop. So much of it is just, hey, quit it. Like, just stop. Like, just stop. Like, just stop producing pollution. Stop making junk. Stop creating garbage. Right? And if the response to that is, oh, well, you'll kill the economy, then my response back is good. Good. Yeah. I very much would like to kill an economy that's designed to destroy us. Very much so. Very interested in that. Right? Oh, well, you're disincentivizing success. I would like to disincentivize the success of psychopaths. Very much so. Very much so. I would like to disincentivize the success of psychopaths. For sure. Like, everything I was ever told about how our economy is structured and how things work is a total farce. And really has gotten to the point where like all of the threats and all of the like snide commentary you can just agree with, right? You can just agree with. Like, you want to destroy the economy? Yes. You want to punish success? Yes. You want well, if you do that, then the rich will just leave. Fine. Like, goodbye. We literally do not need them. Right? They can't take the resources with them. They can't take the populace with them. And frankly, when they leave, no one will notice or care. Right? Like, oh no, the wealthy will sell their assets, uproot their lives and their children, leave their friends and family, and move to like Morocco or something. Off you go then. We shouldn't care at all. And I don't think we would even notice, frankly. Except that the society would get drastically better much quicker. Like, what we are experiencing is something deeply, deeply intrinsic to humanity. Something that we may have called spiritual at some point. But we are having like a crisis of meaning, a crisis of what it is to be a Canadian or an American, a crisis of what it means to be a human, what it is to be in this world, and what it is to live in the world. And the fear that I have is that I see it in myself that I'm beginning to expect the worst in us. That's really the truth. That's really the truth. And it makes me sad to recognize that. Which is what made it so easy to fall for this trap that JC brings to us. That I have come to expect the worst in us. And that the best of us, the people who are actually fighting back, and the people who are actually saying we've got to do something, we've got to mobilize, the people who are actually the best of us, they get attacked by police. The RCMP go in, blow their stuff up, chop down their doors with axes, point guns at them. The best of us get locked away. And we can't continue this way. We can't continue this way. And we won't. One way or the other, we won't. I would like to live in a world where I could assume that the person who's in the room with me is at least interested in my well-being in an abstract way. And I'm sad that I can't, and I'm sad that I don't. The way people who have become so numb to the school shootings should be an obvious red flag that something is very wrong with the way we're going. Yeah, the normalizations of those school shootings is unbelievable, eh? Like, really. And again, I caught myself in that. I caught myself in that, where I saw a school shooting video and I thought to myself, well, I won't bother reporting on this. That's just another one of these. Just another one of these horrific tragedies where a young person picks up a gun and shoots their compatriots. And it really doesn't need to be this way. You know? It really doesn't need to be this way. That's what kills me the most about it. We can simply agree. We can simply say to one another, it doesn't need to be this way. Oh, I've got to reorganize this. I've been saying that for some time now, I think. You can cut all the flowers, but you cannot keep spring from coming. What a beautiful sentiment. What a beautiful sentiment. I asked her kindly, please put down the gun. You don't need to hurt anyone. The world's too hot, the people are too cold. I ain't gonna bother getting old. My work turns to bombs, my life's a lie. No one will notice if another girl dies, and doesn't need to be this way. 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 Christ collapses in an olive grove, prays with blood to his God above. Please, my Father, find another way. Please don't take my life away. The humans know not what they do, and must I die before they'll see the truth? Doesn't need to be this way. 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 She asked me kindly, put the needle in. I can't bear this world of sin. I'm racked with pain and I wish to die. Only God knows the reasons why. Why do we want to live this way? Soulless people forgot how to pray, and doesn't need to be this way. 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 Ooh. Ooh. You know, I keep trying to pretend like I can distance myself. That's sort of the George Carlin approach. That he always said, don't have a stake in it. Just observe it, comment on it, enjoy it. It's the freak show. But don't have a stake in it, and don't have a stake in the outcome. And I don't think I can do that. It's not for want of trying. It's not for desire. I just don't think I can. I think I do have a stake. And I think I do have an agenda and a goal. I think I do want to know that the next generation that follows this one will be better off for it. And I want the next generation to know that criminals should be punished for their crimes. That society should be structured so that they are safe and protected. I don't like that we have made commonplace school shootings. I don't like that we have become commonplace in our apathy towards climate change. And I certainly don't like that it's become commonplace that our politicians will be con men and grifters. You want to know what is really driving banking profits? Algorithmic trading. So once again, just an illusionary nonsense. It's not anything, right? It's not anything. It's just growing tulips instead of wheat. Growing tulips instead of wheat. And eventually everyone will snap out of it. If history has anything to show, we do snap out of hysterias. Whether it occurs after, such as in the Salem witch trials, whether it's after the event or not, we do snap out of these things. I wonder what it'll look like. Oh yeah, the system is already collapsing. Like, literally the only thing that's keeping this thing going is the fact that we're subsidizing it. Right? Like, if we weren't subsidizing these things, like if we weren't actively paying with our tax dollars to keep this system afloat and keep it going, it wouldn't. Right? Because it can't. And like, this is where the too big to fail narrative comes in. Like, they know that if it collapses, it doesn't come back. And they know it won't be until something collapses. More articles and number of the day? We've already done the number of the day, Barnabas. So, and along these lines, right? From BNN Bloomberg, taxing capital gains on homes a step too far for politicians. Now, this CMHC, which stands for the former Canadian Mortgage and House Corporation's Chief Executive Officer, Evan Siddle, right? They're saying that a capital gains tax on houses, well, that'll be a good way to do it, but the politicians aren't going to do it because they know that the opposition will drag them over the coals for it. But in the meantime, as they're talking about it, right? What did it say? There's a laundry list of reasons for sky-high home prices in Canada, from the dearth of supply to low rates to economic fundamentals to the safety net of mortgage insurance. He also points the finger at a lack of capital gains tax. But none of this actually talks about what I consider to be the core problem, which I talk about all the time on this channel. It's becoming kind of rote. There's a billionaire class. You can put the price of these houses however high you like. They'll buy them. Right? 25% of the market is owned by the billionaire class. Yeah. I mean, I'm to a point now where I'm happy to say just like give them a month to do something with them or we take them. I don't understand why we're permitting people to sit on empty properties like this. Like, what's with this speculative casino gambling bullshit? Like, and that's all it is. It's just rich cocksuckers using the housing market as a speculative casino. How about no? Like, how about straight up? Like, no. And like I say this all the time, you can put whatever tax you like on it. You could put a tax of 100% on the properties, and the billionaire class will still buy them. They'll still do this game, right? That's not going to disincentivize them. They have $1 billion. They don't care. They simply don't care. Like, they've got nothing else to spend their money on, right? They've run out of things to buy. So the only way we are actually going to resolve this problem is if we say it cannot happen. Straight up. Don't even get me started about this, like how we do taxation. Like, taxation in this country is so fucking stupid. We could have a 1 or 2% financial transaction tax, and that would be the taxation we would need. We could eliminate the income tax. We could eliminate GST. We could eliminate property tax. We could eliminate all forms of taxation with a 2, maybe if you wanted to go crazy, 3% financial transaction tax. Like, the way that we do taxation in this country, in my opinion, is designed to create groups that you can form wedge issues in politically. That's the reason that it's done this way. So that you can always like cater to this one little group that'll always be your little political base, right? Whereas if you just resolved the problem, right, got rid of the tax completely, formed a tax system that actually goes after the money where it is, right, which is in the financial sector, right? Like, an enormous section of our economy is the financial sector. And incidentally, that's where all the money is. And incidentally, like, things like stocks and bonds, like the trading of these things, are untaxed completely. So we'll tax a mother when she goes and buys like food, right? When mom goes and buys food, that gets taxed. Have a good one, Dave. But we're not interested in taxing, wealthy billionaires for, turning our markets into casinos. Yeah, we have reached the end of our supply system's ability to keep up with the artificially created demands. I happened to be looking at photos of the battle for Donetsk when you played that song. That song paired really well with the photos, but it made me cry. Oh, Major. I got you. But then the government priority spending is askew too, so no point collecting taxes that go back to subsidize the 1% anyway. I mean, that's a really good point, right? If the entire point of your government infrastructure and your government's mandate is to just service the 1%, like, why do you think we've all gone along with this? Just like get rid of taxes for the rich, because like the billionaire class has bought the political class, and so why bother taxing the billionaires if all you're going to do is spend money on the billionaires, which is what we've done, right? That like anytime there's a market crash or any of these things, we just bail them out anyway. So you're like literally taxing the billionaires to give money to the billionaires at this point. And it's just resulting in the most distorted bullshit. Yeah, Greenpeace activists to Canadian banks. Stop funding climate chaos and injustice. We are not going to let banks' CEOs ignore the deadly consequences of their actions. So this is from Kenny Stansel in Common Dreams. Climate justice advocates suspended fellow activists from 15-foot-tall tripods in Toronto's financial district on Tuesday, blocking entrances to the Royal Bank of Canada's corporate headquarters as part of a campaign to pressure the nation's 5 biggest banks to stop funding climate chaos and injustice. According to Greenpeace Canada's latest report on fossil fuel financing, Canada's 5 largest banks are among the world's top 25 funders of coal, oil, and gas. Collectively, Canadian banks have provided more than $820 billion to fossil fuel corporations since the 2015 signing of the Paris Agreement, which seeks to curb greenhouse gas pollution in order to avert catastrophic global warming. That sum is over 13 times more than the $60 billion the federal government has invested in climate action during the same period. Like, just that paragraph alone. Canadian banks have provided more than $820 billion, while the federal government is giving $60 billion. You're seeing a problem? I'm a middle-aged dad with a mild fear of heights who has been politely asking Canadian banks to stop funding fossil fuels for decades. Keith Stewart, a senior energy strategist at Greenpeace Canada and one of the climbers, said in a statement, I'm dangling from a tripod today because the bank's response has been to continue providing over $100 billion a year to fossil fuels. That money pipeline is fueling the climate crisis, said Stewart. After what has happened in BC this year, we are not going to let bank CEOs ignore the deadly consequences of their actions. Stewart was referring to last summer's record-shattering heatwave in British Columbia, which killed hundreds and sparked multiple wildfires, including the one that has incinerated the entire town of Lytton, and last month's devastating floods in the same province. During his address at last month's COP26 climate summit in Glasgow, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alluded to the destruction of Lytton, a disaster of the sort that scientists say will become increasingly common in the absence of ambitious policy changes. Such warnings haven't stopped Canada from forging ahead with its plan to expand the production of fossil fuels, the key driver of the climate crisis over the course of this decade. According to Greenpeace Canada, demonstrators at Tuesday's action urged bank CEOs to come down from their towers and accept charred wood fragments from Lytton homes, with the hopes that the fragments would remain on the bankers' desks to remind them of the life and death consequences of all their investment decisions. Juan Ortiz, a spokesperson at Greenpeace Canada who joined others in handing out flyers at the protest site, said that we are in the heart of Canada's banking district today to interrupt bankers' business as usual because it's destabilizing the climate, destroying biodiversity, and violating Indigenous rights. Activists also encouraged passersby to watch video testimonials from Lytton Shikhan, and Kamloops residents whose lives have been turned upside down by extreme weather. We call on CEOs like RBC's Dave McKay to meet face to face with communities devastated by climate change and fossil fuel projects, listen to their lived experience, and take corrective actions, said Ortiz. As Greenpeace Canada noted, Ortiz, Stewart, and the other activists pointed to RBC's financing of the Coastal GasLink pipeline as an example of a project whose funding should be stopped immediately due to the violation of Indigenous rights and failure to obtain free, prior, and informed consent from the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. According to the research commissioned by Greenpeace Canada, RBC Capital Markets is currently providing 397 million Canadian in loans directly to the Coastal GasLink project and an additional 400.6 million to the project's parent company, TC Energy. TC Energy rents office space in the Royal Bank Tower, whose entrances were blocked today. Collectively, Canada's Big Five banks are providing $1.95 billion in project financing to the Coastal GasLink pipeline. More broadly, Greenpeace is imploring Canadian banks to immediately halt all financing of new fossil fuel projects, develop a plan to slash financed emissions in half by 2030, and ensure that any funded projects obtain the free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous communities. More than 9,400 of the group's supporters have demanded in writing that the nation's most powerful bank CEOs, Daryl White of BMO, Victor Dudig of CIBC, Dave McKay of RBC, Brian Porter of Scotiabank, and Bharat Masrani of TD, stop funding fossil fuels. Because that's the key, right? That's the linchpin that they never want to discuss. I talk a lot about how there are linchpins. People have linchpins. Societies have linchpins. Arguments and structures have linchpins. And if you find a linchpin and you pull it out, the whole thing comes crashing down. The linchpin for this climate change crisis is the fact that we are funding it. We don't need to talk about a transition. We don't need to talk about doing things differently. We don't need to talk about the public reducing, reusing, and recycling. We don't even need to talk about the billionaires, the wealthy people, all of that. What we need to be talking about, and the only thing that's worth talking about, is the fact that we're funding it. We're paying for this catastrophe to happen. We know that we are. The government subsidizes the fossil fuel industry. The banking industry subsidizes the fossil fuel industry. It doesn't matter what we do. We can do anything we like, so long as we are paying for the problem to persist. The problem will persist. And should the capitalists begin to tell us, oh, well, if you stop doing that, then this happens and all of this, then we should simply tell them, then leave, get out of the conversation. These capitalists need to be driven out of the conversation completely. They're not capable of making these kinds of adult decisions. They only care about money for themselves, and they will happily destroy us all to do it. I mean, if this doesn't discredit a person, if this doesn't chase people out of the conversation, I don't think anything will. And yet, here we are. But money, exactly. And again, I said it earlier, and it's worth saying again, that's actually their argument. They actually have the gall and the arrogance and the sociopathic narcissism to stand in front of us and say, oh sure, like breathable air, livable conditions, no wildfires taking over the country, the destruction of the society and all of that, but money. This is literally their argument. It's the argument of these bankers. It's the argument from Justin Trudeau. It's the argument from Chrystia Freeland. They actually say it. They have the psychotic inkling and the machination to actually hold these up and believe that they are equivalent to one another. We've got to abandon these guys. We've got to abandon these guys. And these bankers, yeah, we should be talking about arresting these bankers. These names, right down here, right? Daryl White, Victor Dudig, David McKay, Brian Porter, Bharat Masrani. These people should be arrested. We should hold a tribunal. What they are doing is criminal. They argue in favor of betraying the populace for personal profit. This is a crime. It's a crime against us as Canadians. It's a crime against humanity. We should arrest them. We shouldn't reward them for their behavior by allowing them to continue persisting onward should we move away from fossil fuels. We should arrest these people and put them in prison cells and forget about them. As Trudeau likes to say, those working hard to join the middle class. Yeah. As if such a thing actually exists in Canada any longer. Communist solidarity rally in the 1930s in the USA. The vision of thousands of Americans rallying for communism was one of the things that pressured FDR and the government into passing the New Deal. We will not get a people's agenda by voting for Democrats. We get it by scaring them. I take this one step further. The mistake that the communists made under FDR is they allowed the capitalist system to persist. That the capitalists capitulated, made major capitulations to the communists and the socialists during this period of time. The social security system, unemployment insurance, right? These are not small capitulations from a psychopath class. The whole economy where a single wage earner could have a house, a car, a spouse, 3 kids, that very real economy that certainly existed in America is directly tied to this. So there were successes, major successes, but their mistake, their fundamental mistake, was that they allowed the means of production to remain in the capitalist class, and they allowed the capitalist structure to survive, which, incidentally, FDR said was his greatest success. He didn't say that getting employment insurance in, he didn't say that taking care of the citizens, ensuring that their quality of life improved, getting a minimum wage in. He didn't say any of that. He said, I saved capitalism. That was his big success. And now we're paying for the consequences. And so as we build up this communist movement once more, in order to surround the halls of power as we have in the past, we need to collectively understand from the outset and at the beginning. We do not stop until the beast is dead. We do not stop until the monster is dead. Until we are holding tribunals, until the people who have absolutely caused these catastrophes, knowingly and purposefully, arguing in favor of the catastrophe for their own personal wealth and profit, until the means of production have transferred into the hands of the working class, until the capitalist class is destroyed and dismantled completely. We cannot stop. We should not stop, and we will not stop. Because we see what happens to a country if they do. We have all of the evidence we need in front of us to see what happens to a country if you allow the parasite, the demonic parasite, to persist. That it will organize itself and structure itself to destroy the species. Can you imagine what the world would look like if the communists were successful under FDR? What would the world look like if the communists and the socialists were actually successful in transferring the means of production into the hands of the workers? We just learned there's been Nazi apologetics in our school curriculum for 40 years. Yeah. We're all learning all kinds of funny things, Just JC. I just learned fairly recently that one of the teachers at the Canadian Military Academy is a Nazi apologist. Like, published, no less. So, it's all over the place. New article came out 2 days ago where both Pfizer and Moderna made $10 billion in 7 days. Top shareholders of Pfizer and Moderna made over $10 billion after Omicron arose. Yeah. Yeah, Vince. Welcome to the new economy, right? Our despair is their earnings. Here in Toronto, everyone's waiting for John Tory to announce his intentions. I hope they resign. I hope he resigns. Oh, we got a question from Kate. I think I've got this one saved, in fact. From the World Socialist website. We go down to the bottom. At least one prominent apologist for the Ukrainian far right teaches at the Royal Canadian Military College. Lubomir Lusiuk, a Ukrainian-Canadian Congress donor, is a professor of political science at the Royal Military College, while being a lifelong apologist for the OUN. Lusiuk has called upon the Canadian government to investigate Soviet war crimes, while minimizing or denying outright the crimes committed by the Nazis' Ukrainian collaborators. In 2001, Lusiuk wrote, "No member of the Ukrainian division Galicia can be prosecuted for a war crime or a crime against humanity, since no evidence of such crimes exist." Lusiuk has campaigned against the Holocaust exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. A fervent anti-communist, Lusiuk is deeply involved in educating the future Canadian military leadership on subjects such as history or geostrategy. If students at the Royal Military College are being taught what the Ukrainian Nazis in World War II were fighting a just cause, will they be prepared to suppress strikes or put down an insurgency of the Canadian working class? How is the Canadian Army dealing with its far-right problem if the instructors at its premier military academy laud Ukrainian fascists and Nazi collaborators implicated in the Nazi regime's most horrific crimes? If communism would have survived, the U.S. wouldn't have 53 million people living below the poverty line. Yep. That's exactly right, Isaac. Like, at the beating heart of communism is this idea that we raise people out of poverty, that we give people the platform upon which they can stand in order to contribute the best they can to the society. Like, this is going to be the ultimate failing, the thing that ultimately makes America fail. Like, they have millions of people literally living in the streets. Millions of people whose entire objective and their entire goal is just subsist, try to make a go of it, get to the next day. You can't. That's not a productive workforce. That's not a productive workforce. You can't have people contributing meaningfully to a society. Like, think about what the most meager investment would do to help these people. We'll literally spend hundreds of billions of dollars for jet fighters and shit like that. Like these dumb toys that, like, if we used, would destroy us all. Like, but we can't stomach the idea that, hey, if you just give this homeless person one of these empty apartments that these billionaires are speculating with, they'll actually turn around and contribute to your society and actually create benefits for the society. And to the crowd who literally says, oh, those people just sit around, they'll just do nothing. So? Like, so? So what? Like, even if I concede your point completely, like, so? Like, so you're saying because they'll sit around in an apartment where they'll be comfortable instead of on the streets, that somehow the society is worse for having done it. Says a lot about the people who are saying that, if you ask me. It says resources must give both sides of any issue. Yeah, I remember this. The example they give is that alongside with discussing Nazi atrocities, teacher must also point out the economy improved. That's right. Well, you know what? You'll be blown away when I say this, but as far as the capitalists are concerned, right? Slavery helps the economy. You can find a book called Cotton is King. I've got this great book. It's called Cotton is King. It's a book that is all the pro-slavery arguments on the lead up to the Civil War. Every essay, every article that was published by the pro-slavery movement. And the pro-slavers were very upfront about saying that slavery made them a lot of money. Right? There's a lot of connections to what's going on with modern day fossil fuel extraction and slavery. That, oh yeah, we should do it because it makes us a lot of money. And oh, if you get rid of it, then we won't make as much money. 53 million in poverty is a disgusting amount of people. Yeah. After public outcry, they removed the pages, of course. Well, and less keeps them out of trouble, less crime at least. And guess what? You don't have to look at them. They're not on the street anymore, are they? Right? You get your parks back. Everything looks a lot nicer, right? It turns out that if you treat people nicely, right, the society looks better. Who knew? Who knew? Oh yeah, imagine if Henry Wallace had been VP when FDR passed away and not Harry Truman. Yep, what a different world it would be. Railroaded by the pro-corporate Democrats. Well, I mean, it's unlikely that under Wallace there would have been a nuclear bombardment of the Japanese, right? That by itself would have been an enormous improvement. This massive atrocity and this massive war crime. Like, I love the people who try to say that their childish arguments against communism, like, oh, there's a famine, like, and they don't know anything about it, of course. But like literally their government like dropped 2 nukes on civilian populations. And you're supposed to just like sidestep that. That's completely justifiable, right? It's completely justified that the American military dropped nuclear bombs on 2 civilian targets under Truman, right? With his insipid Truman doctrine, which is even his own generals said was bullshit. Like his own advisors were saying that this was nonsense and saying it was unnecessary, right? This concept of the Truman doctrine that, oh, we had to nuke them because we would have lost a lot more lives if we had it, is like literally the Japanese are in surrender talks with Truman at the time. The only reason they dropped those nukes was to show the Soviets that they were willing to do it. That's it. Like, that's it. One of the major critiques that I actually have for Stalin is that he really misunderestimated and misunderstood how psychotic capitalists actually were. Like, you can see that in his dealing with the kulaks, that for a little while he was really glad-handing these kulaks and really like listening to them and really trying to deal with them. And then they cause a famine by burning down their own crops and killing their own cattle. Like, I don't think Stalin saw that shit coming because he didn't realize how psychotic they were. Like, same story with the Americans. Like, the Americans nuke Japan. It's like, oh fuck, like I'm dealing with psychopaths. Correct. Yeah, a great article on the economy in the 1930s and 40s against the mainstream Nazi privatization in 1930s Germany. Oh yeah, a lot of the ideological permeation between America and the Nazis is pretty thick. Like, it's pretty thick. Like, Hitler based a lot of his writings on like things like Manifest Destiny, right? Writings that came out of America at that time are very Hitler based, very, very connected. And like the American business class was working with the Nazis, right? And the only reason they end up turning on the Nazis is because they knew that if they didn't actually get in there and push into Germany from the east, into the east, so from the west, that the Soviets would have taken Europe, right? And they couldn't have that. So they had to mount a war effort and push in against the Nazis, who they were funding and working with the entire time, right? Like, the Americans, like, as far as I'm concerned, the Americans were complete Nazi collaborators in that entire war. And the only reason they were completely opportunistic. That this whole idea of like, we won the war and wave flagging and all this kind of stuff, like, yeah, you came in at the end of the war and did a cleanup so that you could have a land grab, because you knew that if you didn't actually get in there and do a land grab, that the Soviets would take Europe. Because, like, Europe was depleted. It was destroyed, right? They dropped the A-bomb even after military advisors who had firebombed most of Japan said there were no more targets left. Yeah. In the 70s, they used to say that communism takes your house away. Now I tell my family in the U.S. that Venezuela has given 3 million homes to poor people, and they just go silent. Well, and like, there's a great YouTuber. Oh, I'm blanking on her name. She's in Vietnam. Lula, something like this. She literally lives in a house that was given to her by her government and works a parcel of land that was given to her by her government. That's like what she does. And that's her whole thing. And then she talks about, yeah, Luna Oi. There you go. Thanks, Dan Boxes. And she's like in this house, and which is a fine house. It's as nice as the place I've got. And she works a parcel of land. I don't have a parcel of land, right? Like, grows what she wants, creates what she wants, right? And she makes YouTube videos debunking a lot of the Western bullshit about Vietnam, of which there is plenty. And she's doing it from Vietnam. Like, the capitalists will lie about literally everything. They'll lie about literally everything. This is what I always say to people who still come at me with like, oh, communism and all this. I ask them, first thing I ask them, how much do you trust your media? And I've never had anybody say higher than 5, right? The national average is like 20%. It's low, right? And when they give me like 5 or less, I say, oh, but when it comes to talking about their ideological opponent, the communists, you trust them 100%. You believe everything you've been told. Most of the time, they don't know what to say to that. And if they continue, if they persist, I literally just start saying, like, so at the same time that all of that communist propaganda is coming out, they're also doing reefer madness. So you think that the same people who banned marijuana while simultaneously smoking tobacco are credible sources of information when it comes to discussing communism. And, like, people need to be put in their place. Like, no one knows anything about these things. No one. Like, especially if you're walking around being like, communism's the worst system because, like, what? What do you know about communism? And you find out pretty quickly that they don't know a goddamn thing. That they literally are just regurgitating slogans, just bullshit they were taught when they were, like, little. Like straight up, it's the same sort of belief system as, like, Santa Claus being real. It's totally embarrassing. Speaking of totally embarrassing, John Tory should resign. I hope he doesn't run. He really tarnished his legacy with the clearing of the encampments. This shocking decision to spend $20,000 per homeless person. Right? Like, really think about this. Like, really think about how despicable you have to be as a person to pay $20,000 per homeless person in order to force them out of encampments, instead of just giving $20,000 to homeless people. Like, he should resign. A worse leader than Rob Ford. A worse mayor than Rob Ford. Rob Ford was a better mayor than John Tory. I'll happily say that. Like, sure, Rob Ford was more bombastic, right? Sure, he was a crackhead, right? Better than John Tory. What did Rob Ford do? What did Rob Ford do? What was Rob Ford's big sin? Right? Besides being like a big, goofy, oddball weirdo, right? Which, fine. But, like, he didn't, like, assault the homeless with police. He didn't clear out encampments, spending $20,000 per head to do it. Right? He didn't launch a war against the homeless and clear them out of the city. Force them into the suburbs and the outskirts where they don't have the infrastructure to deal with that shit. Right? Like, hold on. I've actually got something really good from the NDP for once on this. For once, I shouldn't say for once. When it comes to the House, the NDP are actually, like, really, really good. Like, the NDP are, don't know what I just closed there. The NDP are, like, really, really good when it comes to actually talking in the House. It's their campaigning that they suck at. They just absolutely suck at campaigning. Is this it? Yeah, here we go. This is actually my my representative, Rima. I've talked to her on several occasions. She seems like a lovely lady. And these sorts of statements are beautiful.
Strategy on her. Last week, the Auditor General blasted the Ford government for not having a coordinated strategy on homelessness and for its out-of-touch funding based on old StatsCan data about housing need. I'll say, everywhere homelessness is skyrocketing. Rural and small communities that have never seen unhoused people before are begging for help. Shelters and shelter hotels are full. There is simply nowhere for people to go. Cities across the province are seeing park encampments grow, and often their response is to clear them violently, which of course does nothing to house people and serves only to further traumatize residents and their supporters and to criminalize those who work to keep unhoused people warm, fed, and safe. Recently, Black Muslim youth in Hamilton doing that work were brutally arrested. One woman had a police officer kneel on her neck in exactly the move that killed George Floyd. Her hijab was ripped from her head. Community leaders and academics alike are calling for an investigation and that the charges against the volunteers be dropped. The violent clearings in Hamilton echo similar events in Toronto this past summer, and they do nothing whatsoever to diminish the homelessness crisis. Governments shouldn't be relying on volunteers to literally keep unhoused people alive and then punishing them for doing that work. We need to build housing, and we need to provide community and care to unhoused people in ways that work for them while we build that housing. We need a homelessness strategy. We need it desperately. Thank you.
Well, clearing out the encampments with police, that's not a homelessness strategy. But think about the jobs. Think about the jobs, right? I love that jobs argument, right? Like, just no computation whatsoever that some jobs shouldn't exist. And like, why is it always jobs instead of just support? Like, just support people. Let's give people the support they need, right? Allow them to live a simple life. Allow them to just exist and persist and be part of a calm, caring society. Like, what are we actually achieving here? Like, what are we actually achieving here? Like, this is the question that no one ever seems to be able to answer for me, right? Like, so we've got all these homeless people, we've got this spiking income inequality, people can't get housing, all of this kind of stuff. But so what are we achieving? Like, what's the win here? What's the big, like, yay? And like, you can't even say we're increasing the quality of life for people. What is it literally these toys? Oh, it is actually. It is. That the reason why we're supposed to accept spiking homelessness, the reason why we're supposed to accept the brutal treatment of fellow citizens who have fallen into homelessness, the reason we're supposed to accept that there are spiking housing prices, food prices, the reason why we're supposed to accept that our literal, like, societal quality of life has diminished so significantly is because superpowers. This is a mass hysteria. We are caught in a mass hysteria. We need to snap out of it. We need to snap out of it. We have to actually care. Or if you don't care, you have to get out of the way. And let the people who actually do care get the work done that needs to be done. And the solutions are pretty straightforward. The solutions are pretty straightforward. We have tons of empty housing. Give it to the homeless. We have a climate change crisis. Stop funding it. Like, the solutions are embarrassingly simple. And the people who are making them complex are making them complex on purpose, so that they can extract as much wealth as they can from their victims in this vampiric, ghoulish arrangement that is called the economy. Yeah. For those of you who are unaware, right, this is the Azov battalion of the Ukrainian army, or at least part of it. Right? Posing with the NATO flag, posing with the Nazi swastika. Right? No mysteries here. Like, no mysteries about who these guys are. No mysteries about what they represent. And when you hear about the conflict going on in Ukraine and the response from the Russians, right? It pays to understand that we're literally talking about Nazis. Like, whenever it's reported in our media, we refuse to acknowledge that we're on the side of the Nazis and we're fighting with the Nazis. That's what's happening. That, yeah, the Russians should create a military support along their borders, as they did in the past when they defeated the Nazis. Yeah. I think that that's a perfectly normal thing. And the idea that we are somehow the good guys here while we actively fund Nazi groups. And this is Joe Biden, this is Justin Trudeau, right? No, we're not the good guys. Not by a long shot. And in the meantime, these sort of pathetic pandering statements are coming out of the Conservative Party especially, but it's also liberal, the society generally. Canada should join diplomatic boycott of Beijing Winter Olympics. I can't imagine a more pathetic thing to actually call for. That what you actually are saying is we should boycott peace. The entire purpose of the Olympics, I mean, it's been distorted, obviously, and it's become like a capitalist sort of playground. But the entire purpose of the erection of the Olympics was for peaceful diplomatic conversation to occur between countries. That's the reason why the Olympics exist, so that we can have foreign affairs and communications with one another surrounding non-combat related events. We created sports and competition with one another in order to inspire friendship, or if not friendship, certainly respect. That we could have friendly rivalries, right, with one another, and create a new landscape where our battles are waged that don't blow up our infrastructure and don't kill our citizens. Calling to boycott this because the people you don't like are the people who are the current hosting nation is to speak out against an initiative of peace in order to foment war. That is what this is. We shouldn't talk about it any other way. Beijing is doing X, Y, and Z and all the shade throwing and all this kind of stuff. Okay, well, even if they were, which they're not, but even if they were, you should go anyway, as a gesture of good faith, as a hope that they'll stop whatever thing it is you think they're doing that is harming the world community. Although they aren't. Like, O'Toole is still espousing this Uyghur nonsense, which at this point it's getting to be childish. Like, climate change will cost Ontario billions, fiscal watchdog warns. This is the big thing that I think lots of people are going to start realizing, right? That the amount of money we're going to have to spend because of the damage that's going to happen to us from climate change is well going to outweigh. So whenever they hold up and say climate change versus money, well, the amount of money you're going to spend on this, if you continue to ignore it, is going to eliminate this, right? It's just going to make this not relevant. This is paramount. This is fundamental and crucial. And for every dollar you spend damaging this, you're going to spend 2 trying to fix it. But they're not interested in fixing it. That's the problem. Anti-Chinaism is a cult. I mean, it's deeply rooted in xenophobia, is what it is. Like, really. Like, it's beyond cult, right? Like, it really is just rooted in, they're different people, they're bad. Like, really, like, it's like a monkey seeing a different monkey. I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. That is as far as we've gotten. And, like, so it's not even a cult, right? It's worse than that. right? Like a cult implies a certain kind of like fealty or a certain kind of like is but like it to me it's just completely animalistic. Like it goes beyond reason or sense or anything. It's just straight up just xenophobia. It's crazy because a lot of anti-climate change momentum comes from the oil workers who work insane hours in some of the most dangerous and terrible conditions imaginable for scrap pay. Yeah. Like, they are caught in the belief that, like, this is as good as it gets. Right? I do think that China is the kid who got beat up and tries to be harder than they are. Like, China went through some crazy shit. Like, the 100 years of humiliation was real. The Revolutionary War against the imperial power was real. Like, their journey to where they are now is absolutely like what an underdog story. Like they were fucking destroyed. Like they were fucked up. But it just goes to show you, right? Like the people are the power. The people are the power. Which is why America will fail. Because America refuses to acknowledge that the people are the power. They keep them homeless, keep them poor, keep them down, right? You can't lift a society up that way. You can't get to space. You can't create something grander. There's no grand vision for homeless people. Like the oil workers are caught in this idea that, well, I mean, and they're told that this is the case outright by the death cult, that if you destroy the pipelines and you destroy this kind of stuff, then we'll be abandoned, right? And Canada has abandoned industries before and abandoned people. What do you think happened on the East Coast, right? Like when the fishery industry collapsed on the East Coast, the Canadian government didn't come in and say, hey, we're going to give you guys supports and help you through this period of time. They fucking abandoned them. And a lot of people left. When I was at the East Coast for a week, everybody knew someone who left, right? Yeah, the British went to war over giving Chinese people heroin, yeah. The Opium Wars. So China has all rights to be mad, yeah. Well, and like, literally like stealing Hong Kong from them, which like resolved peacefully. Like think about that, actually. Like really think about how interesting that is. That the Chinese launched an imperial war, right? Like a revolutionary war against imperialism and imperialists, and didn't physically go to war to take Hong Kong back. They just waited for the treaty to lapse, and they just took Hong Kong back. Like, the Communist Party thinks things through, man. The U.S. thinks they're going to win militarily, but at the end, China will win ideologically. Asia, Africa, Latin America shifting towards China. Honestly, Europe is too, Isaac. Europe is too. Like, the only countries in Europe, Germany is the big one. There are others, smaller ones, like Ukraine, for example, but like, they outright, like, there is going to come a point, and I think that point is going to be when the Republicans elect another lunatic, whether it's Donald Trump or DeSantis or whoever gives a shit, right? Like, the Republicans are going to elect another lunatic, and a lunatic that comes in and denies the existence of climate change, denies all of these things, starts throwing up sanctions, right? Starts pushing his weight around, like all of that kind of stuff. And the Europeans are literally going to jump ship. The Europeans are going to look at that and be like, this is what we're tying our wagon to? Like, it's a real fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, I ain't going to get fooled again situation, right? Like, the outright, like, having Donald Trump in the first place was scary as shit for these Europeans, right? That was scary for the Europeans. And then Biden comes in and says America's back, and the Europeans' response to that is, okay, for how long? And if it turns out that the answer to that question is, literally one term, and then there's some nut job Republican that comes in, and it's just back to the Trump years, it's just back to the lunatic fringe, climate change denial, all this fucking stuff. Like, the Europeans are going to jump. And once that happens, like, that's it for America. Like, they have no allies then. It's literally us, the Canadians, who are just, like, tied in because we fucking, what are we supposed to do? And these crazy nut jobs who are descending into a civil war. Right? And at this point, it seems unavoidable. Like, I don't see how that's avoidable. Interesting thing coming out, actually. I reported on this, right? This event where there were men in masks wearing sunglasses, holding shields. As you can see, they're all wearing the same outfits and all this, holding American flags, walking down the street. They call themselves the Patriot Front. But the MAGA people, MAGA fans convinced Patriot Front March was an FBI operation because none of them were obese. Right? The feds are at it again. Look, I've been part of major rallies and political events over the past 4 years. There is absolutely no group on the right that can coordinate outfits and accessories like that and have zero sloppy beer guts and ass cracks hanging out. These are feds. How do I know? Look at the shape of these guys. Then look at the BMI of any organically organized conservative gathering, or the BMI of any gathering of the general public in America for that matter. These are likely all FBI special agents. I don't see the special agents FBI thing, but I could see like police, right? Police could get organized like that pretty quickly, I think, pretty easily, right? Especially these police that have recently been shit canned because of mandates, vaccine mandates and things. The U.S. can't even subdue Afghanistan or Vietnam, who were fighting with inferior gear. Imagine the U.S. going up against China, whose military budget last year was 250 billion USD. Yeah. Well, and China's got technology, right? Like, China's got real serious hardware, man. Like, there are big question marks about, like, sure, China probably doesn't have the same amount, but, like, China has stealth technology, right? China has hypersonic missiles. China just did a major breakthrough in quantum computing. Like, will the Americans be able to successfully launch some kind of invasion or some kind of... The strategy from the Americans militarily, by the way, is not to launch an invasion. It's to act as marauders. It's to destroy trade infrastructure. That's what it is. Even right at this moment, the goal from the Americans is not to get into China and take it over and blow up buildings and all that kind of stuff. It's to slow them down by blowing up trade infrastructure. Like, we are entering a new era when it comes to warfare, where places like Russia and China and the United States, like, the people who are launching these invasions and the people who are fighting these wars are cowards, right? Like, the military commanders are cowards. That's why they pick on, like, Afghanistan and Iraq and all this, right? They are not going to launch a full-scale war against a nuclear-armed superpower. They know that they're not going to do that. And they're far too cowardly to do it in the first place. And they understand that the consequences of doing so would be obscene and grotesque. That the nation that launched such an invasion would be thought of as one of the most demonic forces on the planet. We all know that's true. If that matters anymore, if anybody actually cares about that anymore. Yeah, the U.S. Supreme Court trying to overturn Roe v. Wade. Country's as insane as it gets. Yeah. No, man, like, it's a hysteria. It's a hysteria. Like, no one is taking a moment. Nobody's taking a breath. Nobody's just asking real rudimentary, basic sort of questions. Like, maybe we should live in a country with, laws. Maybe we should let women take care of themselves. Right? Like, that's essentially what Roe v. Wade is about. It's about allowing a woman the right to have bodily autonomy. That a woman, regardless of what occurs, regardless of what happens, ultimately has the final say as to what happens to her body and what happens. And like, I think the hysterical hypocrisy of the quote unquote pro-lifers is apparent, right? Like, it's no mystery that the same people who are attempting to spread poverty and misery and eviscerate social safety nets and create a society that's not worth living in are also the same people who are saying, no, you've got to give birth even if you've been raped or something. Like, they don't care. They're not pro-life. They're pro-birth, first of all. And like, when you really delve into what it is they're saying, they're really just saying like, oh, we should erect a slave society. That women should just pump out babies as much as possible, and those babies should be given to a slave society. And they should just become slave labor workers. Which, that's reflected in the way that the prison system operates here in North America. That the prison system is a slave system. That's the reason it exists. Like, period. Doesn't exist to like punish crimes or any of that kind of stuff, or rehabilitate people, certainly not. No, it's a plantation system. It's designed to maximize the amount of profit for shareholders of the prison industrial complex. Yeah. And you are right about that, Grinning. It's a wedge issue. As long as the populace is talking about abortion, they're not talking about class issues, right? And like, as long as the Christian right can pretend like it actually has a moral basis to operate from, which it doesn't, but as long as they can pretend like they do. Patriot Front was in Philadelphia July 4th, and the locals beat the crap out of them and tried to escape in a truck. No way these pussies are feds or cops. Oh yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense that, like, my position is that I don't think that these guys are feds or, like, I mean, maybe some of them are cops and maybe some of them are FBI, like, maybe. Like, fine, I'm not going to preclude that. It just makes sense that a group of men would arise from all of these rallies and all this MAGA shit, and it makes sense that the group would vet for people who they think are serious, right? That they are bringing into their ranks the people they think will actually fight, the people they think can actually fight, and they're just vetting out the losers, right? Just the beer drinking, beer gut, ass crack, gun nut hicks. They just get rid of those guys. They're not interested in hanging out with those guys, right? This is the cool kids club. Right? I mean, the cool Nazi club, but I lived in Los Angeles in the 80s, and I remembered how Ronald Reagan flooded the streets with drugs and filled the prisons to finance the Contras in Nicaragua. Yeah. Isn't that something, eh? Isn't that something? That, like, oh, let's flood the streets with drugs and then criminalize those drugs in order to fill prisons. Like, it's being done on purpose. right? Like it's being done on purpose. It's very explicit. It's very open. Like they didn't even try to pretend. Like it's a death cult. Like that's exactly the kind of thing that a death cult does. Just like, yes, heroin is bad. It must be criminalized. Incidentally, here's a bunch of heroin. Like that's the kind of thing you would see in like a cartoon, like a SpongeBob cartoon, right? And if you watched it, you'd be like, haha, what a wacky, cartoonish thing that would never happen. Fuck, guys, I'm tired, eh? I feel it. It's not that I'm not sleeping or anything, right? I'm tired. I'm really tired. Like, when I started this, I didn't think I would ever get as tired as I am. You know? Just perpetually, it feels like I'm scarring my brain. Like every day I sit down and I go through the news, and it's always like this perpetual, like, what scar am I going to put on my brain today? But I got to keep going. Curiosity alone. Curiosity alone. I just didn't think it was going to be... Like, I just didn't think it was going to be this full of horror. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't think it was going to be so horrific. And goddamn, I didn't think I was going to be this tired. Getting my dog back tomorrow. Me and my partner, my former, my ex, we pass him back and forth. So that she gets him for a little while, and then I get him for a little while. And he's coming back tomorrow, and I gotta tell you, I'm really looking forward to it. Just a weird little snurfling ball of dog. Sometimes he's too much. Sometimes he's a bit of a handful, but it's nice to have life. It's nice to have life. I had a little fancy took me. Just like about a week ago, a little fancy took me where I was like, I could get an owl. I think owls are the coolest. Like if you guys don't know, I think owls are absolutely the coolest. Like, so you see this ring? You see this ring around the owls? This is actually like a sonar dish, right? That takes sound in and funnels it directly into their ears. So they can actually hear sound from a mile away. They can literally, and like why you'll see an owl and they'll be like doing all this kind of stuff and like moving their head around and all this kind of stuff is because they're trying to tune into the frequency, right? And this is what lets owls find mice and little critters underneath like snow or in fields. That they can hear the critters snurfling around underneath the snow or underneath or in the grass. And so you end up with these crazy situations. Like, can you imagine just living out, like being like in the bush, being like a caveman type, right? And owls fly, an owl flies across and just dips down into the field and pulls out a mouse and goes. Look up owls versus crows. Sick. Let's go. Crows are also really sweet. But like I wouldn't want I can't imagine having a crow as a pet. You know? No way, really?
A stealth hunter whose eating habits rival those of medieval kings. A flying menace with some of the most advanced hearing systems in the world.
Flying
A
menace.
cranky fluff who could steal your heart and eat it too. This is the wise hunter of the Americas. This is the great horned owl.
Baller. Baller.
Hi, my name is Arania Iyer, and this is Animal Logic's World of Birds.
Today we're at Hawkeye.
Just gonna pause it because I don't know if this is a video that's gonna get the channel shut down. Socialism is on the move. Nicaragua, Honduras, Bolivia, Venezuela, Cuba, soon to be Brazil. There is progress, but it's at the fringes of empire. Yeah, you're right about that, bud. You're right about that. You look to South America. You look to South America, and that's where the real successes are happening. Don't forget about Chile, right? Chile has outright said, like, neoliberalism was started in Chile, it dies in Chile. Like, that's quite a statement. And all of those countries that you're listed are starting to federate. They're starting to create federated bodies with one another. Yeah, that's right. Play it.
A raptor facility in Ontario.
So if it
meeting
gets shut
one
down,
of
you
the
guys let me know,
fluffiest
okay?
and crankiest birds in the world.
Meet Tank. This is the resident great horned owl.
Their name is a bit of a misnomer. Their horns are called plumicorns, and they're just tufts of feathers, which seem to be used for communication. Most of their close relatives in the bubo genus also have plumicorns, but they're most commonly found in Eurasia, where they're known as eagle owls. Their only other close relative in North America is the snowy owl, which is slightly larger, but it doesn't have Bella Hadid's brows, so it's not considered a horned owl. This makes the great horned owl the largest bird of its kind in the Americas.
Would it be possible for you to take him for a second? My arms are shivering. He's heavy. You might be wondering, why is he called Tank? That's because this bird is an apex predator. It'll take down anything in the forest.
As you can see, these guys are huge. They can get up to 2.5 kilograms with the wingspan of 1.5 meters, just a bit smaller than the largest owl in the world. Their tufted cousin, the blackest fish owl from East Asia. This size helps them catch a huge array of prey, including relatively large animals such as snowshoe hares, large lizards, and marmots. This diverse diet has led them to being nicknamed the red-tailed hawk of the night, due to the hawk's famously voracious eating habits.
There's also been accounts of these birds attacking porcupines. Now, it doesn't usually end well for this guy,
Yeah.
but at least he tries.
Of
No,
course,
don't
their
mess with
diet
porcupine,
largely
dude.
depends
Don't
on
do
their
that.
environment. In areas with relatively few mammals, they're more than happy to go for birds. Some of them are pretty large, such as wild turkey, ravens, and the bird who wakes up every day and chooses violence, the Canada goose.
Canada goose.
But their mortal enemies are the crows. Great horned owls and crows hate each other. For an easy snack, a great horned owl will swoop in and decapitate the crow.
Whoa.
But if it gets away, the crow will call for backup. Soon, the murder will arrive and mob the owl, diving at it, trying to knock it off its perch. If there's enough of them, they'll kill the great horned owl. It's pretty metal.
Now, if the prey is small enough, great horned owls will eat it whole. That doesn't mean that everything gets digested, though. Things like bones, nails, teeth, fur, feather, all of that will be regurgitated. About 15 hours after feeding, what they regurgitate is in the form of these tiny little pellets that, if you're lucky enough to find one, you can actually dissect and put the bones together to see what exactly it was this guy ate. Perfect for date night.
That's so baller, dude. Like what owls do? Just like straight out like.
This hunting ability has helped them conquer the Americas. There are great horned owls from Alaska to Argentina. Their range was considered to be even larger, but the Patagonian population was determined to be a separate species and was named the lesser horned owl. A bit rude. but okay. Throughout their immense range, its appearance varies, but you can predict their size and color based on the local climate.
You might notice that Tank here is just a little bit lighter than the great horned owls that you see in photos. That's because he's a subspecies of the great horned owls from the subarctic. This lighter coloring helps them camouflage better in their environment.
Come on, we need straight up, just like... I need like fight. Like forget this like informative nonsense. Here we go. Oh, he's cornered and everything. Look at this guy. Here we go, man. It's gonna be real. Look at him. He's like not making eye contact. Everything's chill. Oh, this guy's not fucking around. This guy's like, get the fuck out of here. Oh shit. This is exactly what crows would do. Like, owls are gonna fight 1v1. They've got some, like, decorum. Crows got none of that. Crows are just like, yeah, let's gang up. Let's go. But look at him. He's standing his ground. This guy, look at him. He's just like, chill. This crow's causing shit. He's coming in, getting in his face. Owl's just like, yeah, whatever, bro. Whatever, it's fine. He's just looking at him. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Everything's totally fine. Owl just being cool as a cucumber, dude. Cool as a cucumber. Oh, here we go. Seeing a lot of crows being dicks in this. Right? Crow coming over, being like, what's up, owl? What's up? And the owl's just like, nothing, dude. What's the problem? Hey, what? Crows. Owl's just chilling out. Chilling out on a log here. Not causing anybody any problems. Not making eye contact. He's like, yeah, whatever, crows. Crows coming over, buffeted him. This guy didn't even give a crap. He was just like, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna stand here. Oh, what's that? No, it's no problem. Whatever. Look at this guy. This guy's cute. What a sweetheart this guy looks like. He's just sitting there, being a normal owl. Right? Chances are good though. Like I'm taking the owl side because I like owls. But the reality is that the owl probably fucked with one of these crows, right? Like, ooh, that crow getting in there, dude. Dude, owls are so cool. I could watch this shit all day long. All right. We're gonna move on from the owls. That was a nice break. Good suggestion, Yetis. Good suggestion. Man. Friggin', like... Nature is wild, man. It's wild. I guess that's why it's called the wilds, right? Spy agency warned Trudeau China's tactics becoming more sophisticated. Insidious. Like... Oh, I know the Russian lady, dude. I know who you're talking about. And you're right. She's super hottie, dude. Super hottie. Like, I mean, and not just because she's raising owls. Like, I looked into, like, what you can't actually just buy an owl. Like, you need to, like, go get, like, a license and accreditation and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah. It's not like going to buy, like, a dog. Like, you could just, like, walk into a store and be like, one dog, please. And they're just like, okay. Like, no muss, no fuss. And I'm like, yeah, makes sense. They probably do that just, like, not only to protect the owl, but also probably to just protect you. They're probably just like, do you really know what you're doing with this fucking owl, dude? Do you know? Hey, Demand Better, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Like, but you probably don't. So, of course, China's tactics have become more sophisticated and insidious. The Chinese are better at this than you are, right? Like, the Chinese are better at this game. Like, as Canada's spy agency warns that China's efforts to distort the news and influence media outlets in Canada have become normalized, critics are renewing calls for Ottawa to take a far tougher approach to foreign media interference. The warning is contained in briefing documents drafted for Canadian Security Intelligence Service Director David Vigneault in preparation for a meeting he had with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau earlier this year. This meeting focused on the rise of foreign interference in Canada, something CSIS has become more sophisticated, frequent, and insidious. Like, would I be considered foreign interference, do you think? Because I actually say that, like, China's a reasonable place and what they're doing is reasonable? One way foreign states, including the People's Republic of China, try to exert pressure on other countries is through media outlets, say the documents, obtained through an access to information request. In particular, PRC media influence activities in Canada have become normalized, it reads. Chinese language media outlets operating in Canada and members of the Chinese Canadian community are primary targets of PRC-directed foreign influenced activities. Like, literally, we are so weak as a people that we can't withstand China saying, hey, we have our own position, right? It's like I was saying to, I think it was like Nanya the other day. He was like, well, what's good news? What's good news? And I'm like, it is all good as long as you know where it's coming from, right? And as long as you accept, like, that's their position, right? CSIS spokesperson John Townsend said foreign states target both mainstream media outlets, print publication, radio and television programs, and non-traditional online outlets and social media channels to pursue their goals. Yeah, it's called talking to each other, right? Like, the assumption that China is the enemy is just baked into the way CSIS is thinking about this, right? That, like, maybe, crazy thought, maybe they're just interested in talking. You ever think about that? Like, that's why I don't really buy into this, like, oh, it's just Russian propaganda. I'm like, and? Like, shouldn't we listen to what the Russians have to say? Right? We don't have to believe it, right? We don't need to, like, buy into it. We don't need to be like, and the Russians, like, oh, Putin's the greatest. But, like, that's what they say. Is there any veracity to it? Can the story be confirmed? Can we get together and actually see what's what? Mainstream news outlets as well as community sources may also be targeted by foreign states who attempt to shape public opinion, debate, and covertly influence participation in the democratic process. I mean, considering Canada's rich multicultural makeup, foreign states may try to leverage or coerce individuals within communities to help influence to their benefit what is being reported by Canadian media outlets. Like, oftentimes I'm looking at this and I'm just being like, so, like, what if it's true, though? Like, what if what they're saying is true, right? Like, isn't that what should matter the most? Like, what is actually happening? What is actually the truth? But we don't actually do that in our media. We don't like reporting the truth. China has an effective influence network, report finds. It's a tactic former Conservative MP Kenny Tues says he knows all too well. He said he was targeted during the recent federal election by a misinformation campaign run through Chinese language media outlets and social media. If that's the normal behavior, then we should really become concerned, he said. Like, because the Uyghur narrative that we're being fed is complete truth, right? Like, it's and China should not be interested at all in trying to be like, hey, there's actually another side to that story. Chu said he was attacked online as anti-Chinese after introducing a private member bill that would require agents of foreign governments to register and report on their activities. He lost the BC riding of Stevenson-Richmond East to Liberal Parm Baines by almost 3,000 votes. Like, what are you complaining about, dude? Like, why would he even believe in this information? What information? Like, this is the thing. Like, what's the basis of the conversation that we're having right now? Like, why would they even believe in this information? Because our media lies all the time, bud. Right? Like, you feel very sad and ridiculous because your own, like, there are enough people, especially people of Chinese descent, who are looking at the overt lies. Like, it's not even propaganda that's coming out of our media in regards to China. It's like overt, aggressive, large-scale lies. Like, the Uyghur genocide lie is enormous. It's one of the biggest lies told in the last 100 years. It's right up there with the WMD lie. Like, it's an enormous lie. And the amount of effort that has been put into propagating this lie into the population is extremely telling. And it looks like to me, bud, that you lost your riding because you refused to listen to the people of your own descent and your own heritage, favoring instead the propaganda that comes out of the Canadian government, which is pretty brutal. Earlier this year, Alliance Canada Hong Kong, an umbrella group for Hong Kong pro-democracy activists in this country, released a report alleging the Chinese Communist Party runs a sophisticated network that inserts Beijing-friendly narratives into various media outlets. So, like, literally the least trustworthy group that you can find, right? The report says China has been exploiting a lack of oversight in short-staffed newsrooms to push the party line abroad. Like, how much power do you think the Chinese actually have? Like, we can force, like, the National Post to do this? Like, what are you talking about? It says China sometimes pushes those narratives in the open. Yeah. Like, it's not hard to, like, why shouldn't they? Like, this is the confusing part about this. Like, I as someone who is not instantly mistrustful of another nation, I think it's perfectly fine. And, like, China is simply saying, like, oh, you say you have a free press. Well, let's see what that means. What does it mean to have a free press? How serious are you about this free press that you keep talking about in the West? Through sponsored posts or editorial inserts written by Chinese party state media, while groups closely tied to Chinese authorities buy digital or print ads parroting party rhetoric, it's meant to portray that it's indicative they're the group that speaks on behalf of all Chinese folks, all the Canadian Chinese, which is not true. I mean, that's quite a statement to make. Again, like, note how we're not actually talking about what's being put on. Does China weaponize Buff Bernie memes too? Please check out the YouTube channel Walk East. Sure, let's take a look. Let's take a look. I don't think I've ever seen you around, Wendy, so I'm doing this blind. Exploring New Yangming Palace. Driving downtown. Oh yeah. Shanghai's most cyberpunk areas of walking tour. Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful. This is what I'm talking about, guys. Like, straight up. First of all, subscribe. Thanks for the recommend, Wendy. I appreciate it. Let's just pick one at random. I like the cyberpunk one. Let's do it. Yep. Here we go. Wow, this is an hour long. I love it. I love it. Oh, here's the music. I knew it was going to happen. China, welcome to a night walk in New Bund and Guizhou. I definitely mispronounced that. Shanghai. Turn that down a little bit. Dude, like, see, like, this is what's missing from the dialogue surrounding China, if you ask me. It's just like, look, doesn't this look like a normal place that you've been a million times before? Like, if you live in the city of Toronto, like, doesn't look too different, does it? Like, looks pretty similar in lots of ways, right? Like, these are just people organizing and living and attempting to make a go of it, being in the world, existing as people, right? It's not some shithole, right? It's not some catastrophe. It's not some dystopian nightmare, right? It's none of those things. Looks pretty normal to me. looks pretty fucking normal to me. Like, why am I supposed to be scared of this? That's the thing that I keep asking and I keep bringing up and I keep talking about over and over and over again. Like, why every time I tune in to what the mainstream media is talking about in regards to China, it's immediately the first thing that I'm supposed to believe is that China is big and scary. That I'm supposed to be scared of China. And I'm just not. I'm just not. Like, what is it about China that I'm supposed to be afraid of? Yeah, where are the M16s and the dead bodies, right? Like, this looks like a modern culture, a modern society, like all of these modern buildings, right? Like, if anything, I'm like a little disappointed, frankly. Like, you know, I'm a little disappointed. This place looks a little bit too much like North America, right? Like, here, I'm gonna switch it over because I did the cyberpunk one. I want the traditional shit. Let's go. Let's go. This is what I'm after. Here we go. Here we go. Like, why am I supposed to be scared of this place? I can't for the life of me begin to fathom why anyone is supposed to be scared of this. Where's that coming from? What is it? Because near as I can tell, what we seem to be afraid of here in the West, is the idea that a non-white culture can become our peers. That's what I seem to think, like, that's what it seems to be. That we're supposed to be afraid of China because it's possible that we might need to admit that they are our peers. And if you are a white supremacist, and if you live in a white supremacist society, you have to believe that there is such a thing as a winner. You have to believe that there is actually such a thing as someone who is on top. When the truth is that there's no such thing. There's no such thing as a nation that's on top, right? That certainly the people who live in like Vietnam or Cambodia or like Zimbabwe, they have no care about who is on top of what kind of fake manufactured hierarchy that doesn't actually exist. And all it seems to do is engender distrust and xenophobia in a people that we refuse to know anything about. Yeah, Canada banning Huawei, what a joke. Like, it's just isolationism, right? That like eventually there comes a point where we're gonna like sanction and ban and do all this kind of stuff and demand that things be Western and all of this, and then eventually we're gonna wake up and realize like, oh, if you sanction the rest of the world, you are the one that is isolated. Look at this. Look at how beautiful this is. This is cool as shit, dude. Oh, Wendy, thank you so much for this recommend. This is great. This is great. Dude, this is cool. Like, we don't make cool shit in the West, man. Like, we don't make cool shit in the West. Like, our shit is all just, like, sterile, and there's no character to it. It just exists as, like, an edifice, and it's all gonna get blown away in 50 or 100 years, right? Like, this building is probably, like, 500 years old, 600 years old. Maybe even older than that, right? Like, our shit's gonna get blown away in, like, fucking forever. Like, it's... They have free education, free healthcare, free housing, and people may start to demand those things in the West. I know, right? Like, What happens if people start taking a look at China and start treating it like a peer, start accepting it, instead of treating it like a foreign power that's dangerous, start treating it more like a state or a province, right? Which is more or less how I view the Chinese, honestly. That, like, I live in Ontario, right? I take a look at Alberta and BC, and I'm like, okay, there you are, like, fucking forever away. You're far away. And you have your own culture, you're your own people, all that kind of stuff. And then you go overseas, and there's China. And I just sort of think of them the same way. And I think, like, they have their own set of rules and their own way of operating and all of that. And it works for them. Obviously, it works for them. Right? Like, where's the despair? Where's the homeless encampments? Are there Chinese homeless encampments? Can anybody show me a video of a guy walking around like this in a homeless encampment in China? I can show you plenty of videos of people walking around showing you the homeless encampments that exist here in North America. I can show you plenty of videos of people doing a walking tour like this around homeless encampments. Well, where's the homeless encampments in China? Why am I supposed to be scared of this? I really wish the Islamic world and Africa could rise like China did and become superpowers who don't answer to the West. I am xenophobic towards Torontonians. You're cool, though. Thanks, JC. Thanks, bud. I appreciate it. God, I'm on an emotional roller coaster this time, dude. What an emotional roller coaster this show has been, honestly. Holy cow. I'm really looking forward to doing that video tomorrow and apologizing to Trudeau and recanting that statement. I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be a good opportunity to show how serious I am about my pursuit of the truth. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, be gone this idea of like, oh, I'm mad at myself and all that. Oh, be gone. I'm looking forward to it. We should always have that attitude, I think, that you should always look forward to mending fences. We should always look forward to recanting our errors. That is something that should be upheld. You can find homeless encampments 3 blocks away from Beverly Hills. Yeah, right? Like, no problem. He filmed many second, third tier cities throughout China mainland, and you get to see the real lives of Chinese people. I know, right? That's the beauty of this, right? Like this one's kind of special because he's going through like some of the more ancient stuff, right? Really showing off the like this. It's almost like he's walking around in a video game, eh? Like it's for someone from the West, like it's kind of hard to believe that like this fucking exists. Like this is here. It's in the world, right? You can go see it. It's not until you see like people, right? And you see other people milling about that you really realize like, oh shit, like, no, this is the real world. This is real life. Yeah, the videos of Market Street in Philadelphia break my heart. I'm with you, Grinning. I'm with you, bud. Like, and that's a real good point. Like the big takeaway for me on this right now is like, where are the Chinese homeless encampments? Like, if China is such a hellhole, if communism is such a failure, where are the Chinese homeless encampments? There are places in the U.S. that have a life expectancy lower than 60. That's post-colonial levels of poverty. Yeah, bud. Well, I mean, I think one of the most astute observations of poverty in America today was when someone actually broke down Bob Cratchit from A Christmas Carol, how much he was paid. Bob Cratchit from A Christmas Carol is paid almost 30% more than a minimum wage worker in America. And Bob Cratchit's supposed to be like the epitome of poverty. Like, he's supposed to be like the guy that's being exploited by a capitalist, right? making about 20-30% more than a minimum wage worker in America today. Like that's a really astute observation. Look at this beautiful look at this beautiful landscape here. Look at this. Look at this shot right here. He knows it too. He's just like going right over here. Here's the water. Bless this person for doing this. And once again, thank you, Wendy, for sharing. What a wonderful find. Oh my God, I should just put this on like a video screen, like right here all the time. I should have a video screen right back there that's just always playing this kind of stuff. This is soothing. This is exactly what I needed right now, man. This is exactly what I needed right now. This is real nice. Especially right now, it's gotten cold, right? Like, it's gotten cold. What is it right now? It's -6 right now. Like, you don't want to go for a walk outside for too long when it's -6. You know? When it's nicer, you can go for nice walks and all this. But, like... And Toronto's a nice city to walk around in. There's lots of... Yeah, the video... I mean... We got to do it now. We got to do it. Enough of you have been talking about it, right? What do we got? Market Street, Philadelphia.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel.
Yeah, this is a good one. I've actually seen this one. Like, show me this in China. Show me this in China. I imagine it would be really easy to do. I can picture some American Karen bigot going to China and say all this good stuff's not real. It's all holographic projection by the evil CP. Of course, assuming they'd go, right? Exactly. They would never actually go. And like they'd never actually like watch any of these videos, right? Like which is a real shame to me. It's just a real shame to me. Like cool graffiti art, though. Cool graffiti art. Right? Graffiti is one of those beautiful things because people will just create art. If there's a blank panel and nobody's going to look at it, then someone's going to come along and do something with it. I lived in Philly for 8 years. It's definitely worse than 20 years ago. Well, let's be fair, right? Like that last video we just watched was like a museum. Like that wasn't like people don't live there. But like even the city video that we were watching in China, right? Like show me this. Where is this in China? Show me what like that should actually be really easy to find, you would think, right? You would think that you could find something like this in China. And this is just like the normal now, right? This is the normal reality of what it is to live in Philadelphia now. And it's probably $15,000 per month for those storefronts too. Yeah, people have no way out. Yeah, because there's millionaires and billionaires that own the storefronts. They're completely disincentivized to rent them out, right? They're probably like, they're probably not being taxed if the place sits empty, right? This did exist in China over 10 years ago, but not to this scale. Yeah, I mean, I expect to see a certain degree of this in any society. Like I'm not a utopianist. Like, I don't think that you can get away from humanity's strange behaviors and odd outcomes of any society. I think that it's I actually think it's kind of a miracle there's any organization whatsoever to any of this, and that we can get any of it working, right? But like, there are scales, there are degrees, right? Like, if this shit was happening in my community, I would be screaming about it. Like, if I walked down the main drag of my commercial district, and this is what was happening, just discarded people, right, hanging out on the side of the streets, like openly doing drugs, like, and I wouldn't be screaming about it saying, let's get the cops and clear them out. I would be asking, what the fuck is going on here? Why is it that our citizens, why is it that our brothers and our sisters, right, our comrades, our friends, our neighbors, our relatives, our countrymen and women, why are they being discarded into the streets like this? As if they are unimportant. As if a nation is not made up of its citizens. That's the deep, shameful truth about what's happening here in the West, is that we seem to believe that nations exist because of money, instead of realizing that a nation is made up of its people exclusively. That it's people who need to be raised up. And that money is just a tool. It's just something we create in order to facilitate trade with one another. It's not the goal. And look what happens to societies who believe it is. YYC? What's YYC, bud? Just approves 6 million more to cops to clean up downtown. Yeah. Yeah, 6 million to cops who, and like, that money would probably be better served just giving it to the citizens. Just create like a poverty fund. Yeah, unlimited money for cops, none for housing. Well, and we pay more. This is the thing that I always got to tell people. We pay more to maintain this system of poverty. We pay more to maintain this system of poverty than it would cost to eliminate it. We want people to be in poverty. We want it this way. How do I know we want it this way? Because we're paying more. That every single time any society has sought to eliminate homelessness, has sought to alleviate poverty, the discovery that they have had is that it is cheaper for them to just provide food and shelter. It is cheaper to just provide food and shelter than it is to deal with the consequences of poverty. Like, it's become a truism. It's concrete at this point. Like, the studies are in. We don't need to discuss it any longer. No, Jared, this is not David Dole's channel. I know, I've also got a beard. I've also got kind of a floofy hair thing going on. I have glasses. Thank you very much. And David Dole is like a liberal socialist, or maybe a democratic socialist. I'm a communist. But welcome aboard. Good to see you. In China, you will be detained for at least 1 month, even if you get caught doing drugs. For most drug dealers, it's death sentence. I mean, they have a very serious drug policy because of the Opium War, right? The Opium Wars have really instilled in their culture, like, they're very skeptical of drugs. Like, for them, it's not just like, you know, a bunch of rich college kids getting high, right? It's about systems of poverty. They see drugs and drug use as exploitive. No, David Dole's a step down from me, bud. I like David Dole, don't get me wrong. I think he's a fine reporter. But he's like a democratic socialist. Stick around, though. Maybe we'll get you. Maybe we'll get you. We're on a bit of a downbeat at the moment, bud, showing Philadelphia. And there's a fine mistake, right? I'm fine with that if people want to come in here and mistake me for David Dole. David Dole's a good-looking man. I'll take it. David Dildoel. All right. I've had my fill of Philadelphia. Let's go back here. This is nice. We're going to close out today's thing while looking at this beautiful shit. Let's not do this one, though. Let's pop into a different... Let's actually go in. Yeah. Here's a nice shopping area. Pretty sure the U.S. was pumping Afghanistan opiates into China. Oh, yeah. That for sure was happening. Like, why do you think they're growing opium in Afghanistan? Right? Like, they continuously grow opium in Afghanistan. I'm not going to be too surprised to see the Taliban ban the growth of opium. They've tried to do it before. They tried to do it right before the Americans invaded. So I won't be too surprised to see if the Taliban attempts to do it again, especially as they try to shore up an alliance with the Chinese. And I mean, for goodness sakes, like the CIA was growing opium in Afghanistan and then funneling it into America. Like this was talked about earlier with Ronald Reagan, right? Fuck, look how cool that is. So like, and I mean, the U.S. was also pumping into the Xinjiang region. We know that the CIA was funneling terrorists into the Xinjiang province. Did you see the Taliban video of them cleaning out addicts from under the bridges and putting them into shelters with clean beds and counselors? No, I did not. Not surprised to hear it, though. Like, we consider the Taliban like this extremist far-right group, but I mean, like the average life expectancy for people living in like Afghanistan is like 40. It's not old, right? And so think about it. Like, the people who are in the Taliban have been there since the war began, right? And like, since the war began, so like if you're 20 living in Afghanistan, all you've ever known is war. Like, all you've ever known is this American occupation and this American war. And you're not viewing the Taliban as this like far-right extremist crazy group. Like, are they the militant ones? Certainly, right? Are they the ones that are organized with weaponry and are ready to go? Certainly. Like, no one's arguing that. But like, the Taliban live in their communities too, and they operate in their communities as well, and they probably want to see their own people do well, right? Like, they probably have a great deal of sympathy for their own people, and they want to help, and they want to be good leaders, right? It's very unlikely that the people who are running the Taliban and the people who are within the Taliban are doing so for this like Machiavellian power struggle that the West wants to put on them. It's probably far more likely that it's loaded with a group of young warriors who have managed to earn the trust of the population. Given how the takeover by the Taliban happened, we all remember, right? The Americans left and the Taliban took the place over peacefully. We all remember this, right? There wasn't a siege, there wasn't a gunfight, there wasn't any of this. They literally just walked into the cities and took them over because they had already discussed it with all of the locals, and the locals were just like, yeah, that's fine, right? And you can critique the Taliban from an ideological position if you like. But, like, are they actually worse than the American right? Has anyone taken responsibility for killing that entire family with kids recently in Afghanistan? You know, I haven't even heard about it, Wendy. There's so much going on. Here, let's. You know what? I don't have enough time. And I want to end this with this walkthrough, honestly. Honestly, dude. I feel like I've been, just feel like I've been getting nails in my brains. It's probably the CIA then, right? Like, U.S. drone, probably the CIA. It's got CIA written all over it. Cruise missile diplomacy, exactly. Exactly, because that always works, right? We literally have a whistleblower who's currently serving a prison sentence. I forget his name. I think his name's Daniel something. He's serving a 4-year prison sentence for whistleblowing on the realities of the drone program that 90% of the time, 90% of the time, a drone strike misses its target and kills someone else. Like, that's a failed program. Beware the Havana syndrome, yeah. I thought that was the biggest insult ever to the American people, by the way. That, like, CIA agents immediately get healthcare taken care of for this Havana syndrome bullshit. While people who, like, actually have real things going on can't get healthcare. Can't get coverage at all. In the middle of a fucking pandemic, no less. Daniel Hale, that's right. That's right. I think David Dole has permanent Havana syndrome. What do you guys think about David Dole? I'm getting a lot of hate and a lot of heat from you guys about David Dole. I'm quite... Like, I'm on a scale from 1 to 10, where, like, 1 is, like, duplicitous evil dickbag, and 10 is, like, stalwart comrade. I put David Dole at like a 6, maybe even a 7, right? Maybe even a 7, right? I think that he's honest. He's trying to tell the truth. He's not operating on behalf of anybody. He's not trying to cover for anybody. He's just not willing to push his chips in on a solution that will actually work. He still thinks electoralism is real. He still thinks that we can resolve these problems just by going to the ballot box and talking to one another, just through electoral stuff. Oh, here you go. He revealed himself during FTV. He is a neo-lib sellout to TYT. Get fucked. Get fucked, David Dole. Really? He's connected to TYT? Hold on. Hold on. Now my curiosity has outweighed my sense. David Dole, TYT. The Rational National. This is a while ago, though. Like, TYT itself took a pretty big turn. Is he still connected with the Young Turks? Here you go. David Dole comes from the background, working in broadcast news. He completed advanced diploma in e-commerce management at Sheridan College. Good for him. An advanced diploma in television new media at Loyalist College. Good for him. David has been a video editor for CTV News, for AMD. In the 2015 general election, David ran for political office as a Green Party of Canada candidate. Oh, that's fun. He was an associate producer. Political commentary. I just don't know how connected he is anymore to TYT. TYT took a turn, man. It took a big, big turn. Yeah, it really became like very, very pro-corporate, very pro-democrat, very pro-democrat. They're really like the vote blue no matter who, that kind of thing. Like, and I know that David Dole was connected to them before they took the turn, and they definitely took a turn. That definitely happened. But like, I don't know where he stands anymore. I don't know where he stands now. And so, I don't know. I'm going to say jury's out for David Dole. I haven't seen him do anything that I would consider egregious. Do you know what I mean? That like, anytime I run into David Dole, I feel like he's trying to honestly tell you what's going on. He's not trying to manipulate you. He's trying to tell the truth. And these days, that's good enough. That's good enough. You know what I mean? Like, that's more or less how I feel about Jimmy Dore. That like, Jimmy Dore's off in left field right now. Like, pursuing this like the COVID shit and like all of that. He's out in crazy territory for sure. But I think he's still trying to tell the truth, right? Like, even as he goes through this Looney Tunes moment, I still think he's trying to tell the truth. And so that's what keeps bringing me back to Dore and keeps making me be like, oh, let's listen to what Dore has to say. Because I don't think he's trying to manipulate me, and I don't think he's trying to lie to me. And honestly, if that's how Dole operates, then am I a pro-mandate neolib? This is my position, JC. This is my position on vaccines and all of this, okay? I completely understand why people are anti-corporation, 100%. I hear you, I get it. I completely understand why you're anti-politician, 100%. Don't listen to the corporations, especially like what they've done with smoking, climate change, like all that shit. Don't listen to the politicians. Fuck what they think. Don't listen to like the International World Health Organization or any of that kind of shit. I never give a shit at all. I haven't cared at all about any of that. What I do care about is what the doctors and the nurses say. That's what I care about. That if the doctors and the nurses say get the vaccine, I'm going to go get the vaccine. And if the doctors and the nurses say don't bother or don't worry about it, then I won't. And that's 100%. That's 100% where my position is and will stay. Because I consider the corporations and the politicians and the international health organizations as corrupted and untrustworthy, and they have other motivations. Their motivation is not strictly my health and safety. Whereas the doctors and the nurses, they are motivated by two things: their own health and safety and my health and safety. And so what they say, it goes as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, pro-vax, anti-mandate. Yeah, I get a lot of people who are like that. I don't really take a mandate position. I don't really. Honestly, when it comes to this COVID stuff, and I've known it all along, like, I don't really, it's such a complex issue with so many different voices and so many people who have a lot of interesting and correct things to say, that I don't want to plant my flag, because I like to plant my flag on what I consider to be the truth, and I don't know that has really manifested itself seriously in the COVID conversation. Like, especially because of the levers of control they are exerting with censorship. Yeah, absolutely. That happened immediately too, eh? Like if you started talking about the pandemic or COVID on a YouTube channel in the early days, they would just straight up censor your shit. Like people would get demonetized. People were creating like a fake language, right? Like that instead of saying COVID, you'd say like, I forget what it was, but there was a word that you would say instead of COVID. And like, just like really, really oddball behavior in order to control the narrative, right? But of course the corporations have a vested interest. Like they don't want to cure this thing. Why would they want that? It means less money for them. They can't sell vaccines if the thing's cured, right? All right, guys. We've reached 9 o'clock. Well, I mean, China didn't really have to mandate vaccines, right? Like, they kept the place pretty clean. Like, they did what they had to do right away, right? And now they're operating in a society, and you can see lots of people are wearing masks and stuff, right? And even if this pandemic goes away and all this, I'm going to keep wearing the mask too. I used to get sick about 3 times a year. I haven't been sick since this pandemic started. I'd like to keep it that way. Yeah. Well, but that's because at the beginning they did the right things. They locked the place down. They cleaned the thing up, right? There's and I mean and also they have this culture of like, oh, you need us to put a mask on? Oh, okay. Health and safety, everybody put your masks on, and everybody just does it, right? And I mean that's like an ideological difference between what's happening in communist countries and what's happening here. And just JC, I want to say to you again, and in public and all that kind of stuff, thank you for challenging me on that. Thank you for challenging me on that because I want the truth. I want the truth, and if I step in it, I want to know. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow's video. I'm looking forward to spreading that around. I'm looking forward to the snide asshole who's gonna backbite me. Thanks, Jared. This is a great time to say to you guys, please like, please share, please subscribe. Please tell your friends and family about me. Please let the world know that I exist. I'm trundling towards 1,000 subscribers, and that's when the rules change. That's when everything changes for this channel. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. It would be a really great Christmas gift to me if I managed to hit 1,000 subscribers. Wouldn't that be lovely? Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. And again, Wendy, thanks so much for this recommend. I'm going to be showing this channel a lot, I think, on this, because like we got to do what we got to do to try to show people like this is not scary. Like, what's scary about this? This is awesome. Look at this place. Look how fucking badass, kick-ass this is. That's so cool. All right, guys. All right. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you so much for contributing. Thank you so much for lifting me up and for coming together in solidarity. As always, as I say, like, share, subscribe. Give me $1. My Patreon's down below, all that kind of stuff. And always remember, each and every one of you is a divine quantum being walking around in quantum energy. For the new people in the chat, we can talk about that later. These billionaires spend hundreds of billions of dollars to convince you that you are less than them and not their equal, so that they can enslave you easier. Don't let them. Rebel, revolt, repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.